We ready?
Are we ready?
I think so.
I'm ready.
We don't have intro music. Real trading is finally here. Should we be able to plan our builds before launch? Support gem systems overhauled, blah 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 stuff about that. Is the slog finally over? Huge changes to defenses. Is blue life still the be all and end all? The best and worst ascendancy changes, and one commonly used passive node may actually be causing irreversible hair loss. Find out all about this and more today on actually though, the Path of Exile podcast, where by watching you've legally agreed to not clip us out of context. Please. I'm Ziggy, here to moderate the show. This is Nugi's show, and Captain Lance is here so that we have at least one person who knows what they're talking about. Welcome, boys. How you doing?
Maybe an exaggeration.
Here we go. Let's jump straight into it. Our topic today, to begin and kick things off, is the biggest topic of all time in Path of Exile history, and that is trade. I don't know what to do with myself after a decade, more than a decade, of demanding proper, instantaneous, asynchronous, offline trade. We have it. We have asynchronous instant trade coming with an in-game browser and everything. Let's talk about, firstly, the mechanics of how it works, and then I want to hear what you guys think the implications of this are, whether it's going to be a good thing, or should we not have been given everything we've ever loved and wanted for Path of Exile. So let's kick off with how things work. So what do we got? What have we got? We've got the buyers have to place a gold fee in order to purchase items. Yeah, roll the clip. Go for it.
All right, we'll roll the clip. We'll let the Jonathan himself tell us exactly how to work.
Perfect.
During the third Edict content reveal, we announced the new asynchronous trade system that allows you to purchase items instantly from other players, even when they're offline. But one feature we didn't quite have ready in time for the reveal is the in-game market browser. Well, it's ready, and we know a lot of players have been looking forward to this one. Open the browser by clicking here. Search for the item you're looking for. Then click the purchase button to be immediately teleported to that player's hideout, where you can purchase the item from their shop.
Holy.
They don't even need to be online. Almost all the functionality of the website is available here. You can search using many different filters, sort everything how you want, and buy it instantly.
I don't know if they did some editing magic for this, but like, I feel like it ended up being way faster than I expected, watching the footage of them kind of using the in-game browser and everything, like the process, like how many clicks it was to get through this. But I don't know, guys, like what were your initial reactions to this? Were you expecting to get this particular announcement? Lance is cracking up because he could not get the audio working, it seems. Is that...
Oh, don't make fun of me, okay? It's fine.
Because when I play it on my end, it doesn't play on his end. It's fine. Well, it's technical difficulty. So whenever I play something on the canvas, it doesn't play on your end, Lance. Just now you know.
Yes, we're gonna start this.
So
We'll do 3, 2, 1 in the future.
Yes, we'll 3, 2, 1, and then you can watch it on your end at the same time. You click the same thing because it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But actual trade.
Maybe. Yes.
I mean, I was. So when did they announce that they? Well, they talked about it on the announcement stream that it was coming, TBA. And then like a day later, they're like, no, it's actually here. I was like, what?
For the in-game browser.
Yeah. Oh, in-game browser. Oh, even that. Oh no, we had the. Oh, did we already have? Yeah, we had the asynchronous trade first. That was already announced, and then they did the in-game browser. I was like, what the fuck? Because we've all, I don't know. I've always wanted it. Always wanted the in-game browser, because I think it's one of those things for the last 10 years. Right? The last.
It sounds like you're more hyped for the in-game browser than you are for like the asynchronous trade and everything.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I mean,
really,
a bit of both.
Unhinged.
No, but it's because for like 10 years they've been like, no, we can't actually add anything in game. The UI options, it's like impossible, and like the work, and we're just gonna let these other guys do it for us. And it's always scuffed because then you end up with like TFT and wealthy whatever all those things are called, that are just like, they're just scary because you never know how they're gonna process your data, and like giving them access to your stuff, and like how are we not getting scammed through all of that, and also having to tab out of the game to go to a third browser. It's always annoyed me. I just want to play the game. I'm really excited to just do things in game now. I've been waiting for this for 10 years.
I guess you're one step closer. Instead of having 10 things up in the background, it's now only 9. So that's an improvement. Lance, what were your first impressions to this? Are you more excited for the in-game browser or the more
I
expected
like
actual
the in-game
trade?
browser. I will see how good it is. Since I'm planning to play
True.
controller, I'm a little bit wondering if I'm gonna
Oh.
be able to use a mouse and keyboard to type into the search filters and stuff. Like you can do, like, let's say
Should be
you
able
can
to.
control F, you can type in your tabs and your stash and whatnot. So I'm assuming I can still use mouse and keyboard to interact with the in-game browser. But if I can't, then I'm gonna be maybe still alt tabbing to buy things because I'm doing my
Yeah.
run on controller mainly.
I really hope you can at least type, like, even if you can't click,
I
because it can't do
think
the
it
hot
will,
swapping yet.
because the current functionality of controller is all of like the options menus and stuff. When you pull it up in game, you can interact with that with mouse and keyboard, and like you
Oh,
can
okay.
still type messages.
That's good.
So I would assume it's still gonna be able to, like, okay, if I'm clicking the in-game browser thing, I can still use my mouse. I'm assuming, but we'll see. If it's with controller, then it's probably gonna be I'm just alt
Oh.
tabbing at that point.
I am just flabbergasted that the in-game browser has taken the focus of this conversation instead of actual
Well,
trading.
I mean,
This is not how I
that's
expected this to
Nugi's
go.
fault. Okay, that's Nugi's fault.
Sorry.
He's
I
the
have
one who's.
different priorities.
I think
Okay, all right.
it's nice and all, but the real meat and potatoes is actually acing offline trading. The amount of like not needing to stop and interrupt gameplay to trade, not having to deal with the message 15 people to get a response. All that sort of stuff is such a like significant amount of, it chips away at how much fun you're having at the game. Like one of the biggest things I run into is, let's say I'm making a build where I did some high investment character because I just wanted to see how it would go, but then I realized, okay, this is a really good character. I could probably make this on the budget. But the biggest like barrier between me wanting to go and put together a lower budget version so I can showcase, hey, this is how you do this on a lower budget and it'll work, is I realize I'm gonna have to trade for every single gear piece, and I'm gonna spend 2 hours
Oh,
messaging
yeah.
a ton of people for every single item, and I'm just like, I don't want to go through that. And now that we get the ability to just port there, grab the item, leave, is just, oh, it's so awesome.
So we tolerated not having instantaneous asynchronous trade for a very long time. Not necessarily by choice, but for a long time it was, despite our complaints, somewhat tolerable. And that was because like there was kind of just an unofficial community consensus to make things at least reasonably tolerable for each other. But since the launch of Path of Exile 2, I felt like that changed a lot. We had a big influx of new players. The culture of trade shifted a bit. People got a bit more frustrated. The nature of it, along with like the trade site and stuff, not being quite as good as it was. Like it's not quite up to on par with Path of Exile ones. So it was getting worse and worse. And from like speaking with GGG, that seems to be like a big driving factor as well. That they felt like it had like, okay, we act like they were planning on doing it. I think for a while now.
Yes.
But this was a tipping point. It's like it's getting too bad.
How could you tell it all? Because this is the impression. This is just a curiosity thing. I think a lot of people got the impression that Mark had bad experience with trade, which is part of the motivation. Was it actually Mark dealing with like the repricers and the annoying people, or was it also other people that you talked to there wanted it just because?
There is a
What was
truth
the
to
impression
this.
you got?
There is a truth to this, and it's a fantastic meme. But I feel like Mark is actually almost a metaphor just for the overall, like, all of the various developers at GGG who play the game and have gotten increasingly frustrated with it, and all of the developers who've just like watched people get increasingly frustrated with it. So I think I think like even more so than Mark doing it. Like he's been a big driving force for like a lot of the specific changes, like like a tweak to a boss or a tweak to a skill or something like that. I'm sure, because how would you have that power that Mark has to be able to change the game the next day at the office, or even right then and there as you're playing, and not like take advantage of that? But I think in this case, this goes beyond Mark even. This is such a huge thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to think how far we've come. This all started because they wanted the ability to link the item. I was talking to Jonathan about this, how hilarious it was. They wanted the ability to link the item on the forums and prove that it was real. That was the only thing they wanted to do. So they made a
All the way
system
back?
so that you could verify
That's
an
where it
item
started.
as real on the forum. So like, yes, if you linked like, guys, I just found the best like two-handed sword that's ever existed, and they just post a screenshot or whatever, or type it out and it's like fake. That would happen all the time on like the D2JSP forums. Like people just fake. There's no verification there. They just wanted the ability to verify because they thought that would be cool for like sharing your loot and stuff. And that evolved into people making shops. So they'd have all their verified items listed out with prices listed out. You would DM. I can go back through my old DMs and find trade requests from 10 years ago. And you would hope that the person would get it, and you're trying to arrange a time to meet or something the next day. And then like, well, people want to make this process a bit more convenient, so they started scraping the forums, and that got really to the point where it was like just DDoSing them. They're like, oh god, we've got to make an API for this so that you guys stop DDoSing us. And then people started making plugins for the browser that were like hyper efficient. There was like a technological boom that led to like PoE trade. And then they're like, well, now we're going to kind of make an official version of this, I suppose. And they were like, oh, well, people are getting really frustrated with this thing that we never even planned. So now it's currency trade. And now here we are. It's quite a long and entertaining history of evolving to this point.
It's
Kicking
kind
and
of
That
screaming
is
all the
a
way somewhat.
pretty extreme change.
It's funny
Yep.
because all the way back in the day, the things that became the PoE trade, or the original the third party tools that were before the PoE trade that we now have, like Path of Exile / trade, which is theirs, which everyone uses now. I forget what the other one was called. Do you guys even remember that everyone used?
Nah, not at this point. Not at
Podot
this
trade.
point.
Yeah, I
Just
think
Podot
so.
trade.
Yeah, and there was even one
Podot
before
trade,
that.
yeah.
But
XYZ, yeah.
the thing is, before all of that, these tools were just, people made these tools both, well, because of the convenience, but it was also so they could be ahead of everyone else. Because when people were just going through the forum posts, when they started scraping, they could get all the snipes. So in the very early days, people just got super rich because they just sniped every item off the forum that nobody else knew was being posted, but they knew.
So you're saying our current trade system is thanks to the snipers?
Yeah,
They
pretty much.
They
It's
started
like,
the
it's basically people
technological
wanted to have an
revolution.
advantage, and then that turned into, well, I also want this, and then that's what it is.
The trade arms race.
It really was the trade arms race. I think that's a lot of what this is. It's just like, because time is valuable, and it's like it's also all these other tools. It's like people realize that their time is valuable. They try and make things so that they don't waste time. I think though, for trade, like I think one of the reasons why we're okay. So I don't know if you guys remember like just the sentiment around trade over the years. So over the years, it was like everyone was on GGG's side that we should absolutely not have trade because they would kind of corrupt everything, or instantaneous trade, right? Because the ease of itemization would be too great.
Auction house was the kind of discussion all the time.
Because you wanted the loots that you dropped to actually be valuable. But I think that doesn't really hold true anymore. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think with all the crafting and everything that goes on in the game, like this idea that you're not supposed, because there's so little time involved anyways in trading compared to everything else. Like everything else takes time building up an item. So the trade is the least of it anyways. Like speeding up that time doesn't really amount to much anyways these days compared to what it did back then. Because back then you just went into the map, took the item, placed it on trade, and then you were scouring. And that was kind of the progress. But now you go into the map, pick the item up, pick the other 7,000 orbs up, put them on the items, do all these things before the item even like materializes. And then you trade it. As like, the fact that like making this trade take longer is not important anymore?
Well, I don't know. Okay, so a big part of the original reasoning for not doing more of this sort of thing in the past was always the idea that you would circumvent the the gearing process. You would shorten it too much. Character would reach a finalized point, or even more importantly, is the idea that at a certain point you cease to be able to ever find an upgrade for yourself. The more efficient trade gets, the bar for what you need to find yourself gets more higher and more specific. And it's not like that has ceased to become true, but the way that they were trying to hold that bar down artificially so that players could find the occasional upgrade for themselves was through making trade friction was often mentioned, the idea of friction. And unfortunately, that friction was being done through user experience because that was the only tool they had. They didn't have a way of doing it. So they were like, yes, okay, it's going to be hard, or it's going to be annoying, or there might not be the item you want, or the item you want, the person might be AFK or something like that. So you might only be able to get 60% of the items you want through trade, and then you kind of almost forced to find some upgrades. And it's good because people like finding their own upgrades, right? But it's not the fun way to doing it. The frustration point outweighed the fun of that was being
Start
saved
losing some
clearly.
players if they quit from it.
Yeah, and some people were like, "Oh, should we even have trade?" I prefer SSF and stuff like that. But even if you don't trade yourself, the economy is, I think, fundamental to Path of Exile at this point. It is an economic game, even if you're not, in your mind, participating in the economy. It's like if you open a pack of Magic cards and you're like, "That's a $200 card," and you never plan on selling it ever. But just the fact that it's $200 card, that kind of makes that item a bit more exciting, right? You know that's
Yeah.
oh man, if I was gonna sell this, someone else would pay so much currency for this item.
That's
So
always the phrasing when I'm playing SSF. Oh, if I was in trade, I would sell this right now. But it
well, that
does
makes it more exciting.
it hits your mind. You think about it. That's a tink, or it would have been a tink.
I don't. But I
For
don't.
Well,
me,
go ahead,
This-
Lance.
I was
Go
gonna
on,
say for
Lance.
me this conversation, I definitely started playing PoE a lot later than you guys, so I missed a lot of the earlier progression of the trade system and stuff. My perspective was always I didn't quite understand the reasoning. I know people would say they would reference, oh, auction house in Diablo was a real big problem, and I don't have any context for that because I am, believe it or not, despite what my chat tells you, I'm a young man, okay, and I was like a child back when that happened, okay, and so I don't get the context for how this thing catastrophically failed. Um, and to me, it was always just I always was looking forward to maybe someday we'll get it, but it didn't feel like it was a real possibility they'd actually give it to us. But and I didn't I never really got the argument against the asynchronous trade.
Yeah,
So
you
I'm
didn't
just
have
over
that.
the moon about it.
A lot of people in that position, they don't have that same context because they didn't go through auction house trauma. Did you have something, Niggy?
Yeah, I don't. It's just I don't think it's the because I don't actually look at items the same way anymore as I did back then. Back in the day, items were something that were sold complete. We had limited ways of manipulating items further. Now items are mainly just commodities. We already have a commodities auction house already. So, which is where the majority of the power into items is actually traded. It's through essences, it's through all these things that turn up and become items anyways. If you look at PoE 2 as well, it's like items are commodities. You slam them together, you further improve them with currency. They're only a small part of the equation anyway, so they don't become this final, they can be a final piece, but I think for a lot of players, getting the item is just the starting point anyways. It's not the end.
I'm going to
anymore.
actually though you. I think I'm going to actually though you for this one.
Oh, okay.
So I think actually though the I think the vast majority of players do buy items complete and don't go beyond maybe putting quality on them, adding a socket and putting something in a socket. I think that's a really good thing about socketables actually, is that it is a crafting that is accessible to 90% plus of players.
Right?
I think there's very few players that won't socket an item, but there are very few players that will essence craft, and there's single digit fraction of single digit percentage of players who will ever use the recombinator. It's like, so I think like the trade is definitely still about like buying those complete items, but it is interesting. Like I get your perspective though, that has shifted over time if you are like more involved in item creation. And I also agree that the like we said it at the time when the currency exchange came out. You can remove my arm actually now. The currency exchange was like solved 90% of the drama because like
Yeah.
a lot of the non-responders was trying to like buy currency. A lot of the friction and pain in the butt stuff was like buying things for mapping, like fuel for what you wanted to do. That was a massive pain in the butt. But I think this extends that like relief we felt when that came out to a larger portion of players who do just need to buy like complete items.
Right.
Mm.
Do you think that? Well, I do agree with that point that a lot of people do that. And it's like you mentioned how many people are going to use like the recombinator. But I mean, you're not going to use the recombinator if you never have things to recombinate together anyways. So like then the whole trade, like if you don't have the items to actually recombinate, you don't even attempt it.
I think
And
a lot of the
buying
people
items-
that would buy items pre-crafted would also be in the group of people who, let's say they drop an item that has a T1 affix, that would be a good recombination affix. They would just go and sell that for the value it has. Like, let's say, obviously it's PoE1, but like, or PoE2, this is a PoE1 example, is suppress. Like, you know how when recombinators could move suppress and people were literally selling just suppress bases because of that value. There's gonna be like movement speed boots in PoE2 would be a good example of like a targeted recombinate affix.
Do you think, okay, so that's actually a good point. Do you think that will then make people value picked up items because they see recombinator value and the ease of trading actually makes them move that into the market?
I think the hard thing about picked up items is the at least for me, I start getting to the point where I say, what is the odds that I pick up that item right there on the ground and ID it and it has a good affix? And it gets to the part where it's like, I'm only going to pick it up if it says this is a tier 4, it at least has T2 or higher affixes. Like that still ends up happening for me a large, like all league start, I'll be picking up everything as I'm leveling. But as you get more progressed in your character, you start cutting out a lot of those things because the likelihood of it actually having a good affix is not great until it has the forced affix tiers. At least that's my perspective looking at it. I don't know. Other people probably have different approaches.
So this touches on something that I think is a problem with what they're going for with the initial implementation here, which I suspect they'll probably get a fair bit of pushback from. And that's the inability to price an entire tab. Last I heard, that was the idea with this new asynchronous instant trade system, is that you can't like put a price on a tab, like just have a two chaos tab or whatever, a 5 exalt tab, and just dump everything in there. Because like selling those sorts of like smaller items when you are, and this is, I'm looking at it from the perspective of the player who is not an expert in understanding how to price check their items. And also like that tier of items that you're not really price checking anyway. Like you think, oh, this is probably worth something to someone recombinating, but it's not like something that I'm going to take the time or have the knowledge to price check. So for those people, my recommendation has always been over the years is like put those in a 2C tab, you know, and then you will learn by the process of selling those things. But not being able to price the entire tab, I think does put a damper on the like selling side of things. And I'm bummed about that decision because I think that would have been a good opportunity for more people to learn how to sell items, because that's such a good learning tool, is like just physically selling items and seeing what sells instantly and what doesn't.
To me, it's more, I see that. When you say this though, I'm just dreading having to pick up a bunch of different things and having to go put it in, manually put the price, like scroll down the thing. I mean, should there be like, just an idea here, but how about they had like price stickers already that you had like a, you know, like under the tabs thing, you could have your own price stickers you can just drag and drop on the items.
I actually love that idea, especially because of the physicality of that.
Yeah.
Which I think this trading system does improve like the physical part of trading, which is ironic because we're not having to manually go trade items with people. But I think there's actually a lot of physicality to this whole system, and adding like basically a macro to be able to fast price things like that would be if they weren't going to do full tab prices, that would be a fun and physical way of doing it. I think people would enjoy little post-its you put on your items.
I think I would still just be fighting for the option to just be able to price an entire tab.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
I don't know being able to just chuck everything in and that's my 5C tab. All of the stuff's going in there and
I would like
not
both,
have the extra individual for every single thing.
I think the putting things in a tab or like pricing things is actually important for players. Like I think the okay, let's say a new player goes and puts things in a tab. They make a mistake. They realize they made a mistake and they got bought. It's I think the fact that you are getting checked by someone being able to buy it and you can't hold off with selling it will make people it'll force people to learn. It'll tell them a hard truth.
Huge, yes. That was what I've been thinking about a lot, is like, so I think a lot about the perspective of how people learn to play the game. That's my bread and butter. And I'm really excited about this system from the perspective of people learning how to trade, because you get such a real and tangible feedback for your pricing now. So you put things up too
Instantaneous
low.
5 people poured in.
Yeah, there's no change in your
Yes.
mind. Obviously, the quality of life of not having that person raise their price every time you DM them is great. Gone are those days.
Oh, this is actually
it-
hilarious. Just think
as
about
a
this.
seller, though.
Just think
ahead.
about what Lance just said. Just the real implication. You put an item up. Let's say you get in the update cycle. I'm not sure how this works, but like we all know that the update cycle is like a little bit scuffed sometimes. You put an item up, and then let's say it goes 30 seconds before it updates. And it's a really high value, high rate of trade item, and then you just see 20 people poured in at the same time.
Yes. That's what I mean. It's so physical and visual. Like you see people like an actual stampede, like a cartoon.
Yes.
Stampeding into your hideout to get that item, and that is
Fun.
just such a good way to learn. That is like the flood of messages was like a way of doing that. But I think like even now you're probably leaving your map, and even if you're not paying attention to the notifications, you see a bunch of people in your hideout, you know, okay, I'm pricing my items well or too cheaply possibly. No one's ever standing around your hideout. You're pricing things too expensively. You're not selling the right things. There's some good feedback to the learning experience there for sure. I'm excited for frustrating. Yes. Totally am. I'm looking forward to talking a lot about trade this league. I love it, but it's so much more fun to do now. So obviously there's some huge implications here on the fact that and this actually touches back on what we're talking about with the tab pricing. I think they're not doing tab pricing intentionally so that they don't, to try and lessen the amount of 1 and 2C items that are getting posted, just to try and prevent those from devaluing too much, or those availabilities from being too extreme. And that is, I think, one of the biggest topics here, is that with this, the barrier to selling things and the barrier to buying things is so much lower. Even checking the amount of gold, I asked Jonathan about in the Q&A about how much gold it would cost to buy something on average. To buy like an average endgame rare, it would cost about the amount of gold you would get on average from a map of that kind of level that you're doing, which is not that much in my mind as far as like outfitting a character goes.
Well, it depends on what kind of map he's
but
talking about, because like some maps can give you
We're talking
hundreds of thousands, but
like
so you don't want that, because then people,
averages, yeah.
you know, it's like
He's
it's
definitely
a
not talking
low-level
about
map.
the unique gold map.
No,
He's
but
talking
even
about,
then, no, but even like in
It'll be a few
high-level
thousand
maps,
gold.
if you're doing really juiced, I mean, I get gold piles of like, I just went in just earlier and I saw like a 9,000 gold pile.
in the
I think-
video itself, they showcased various item level items. Like if you go through that footage, and the low item level stuff, like the quill rain, was like 1,000 to 2,000 gold, like a low level item. And then they showcased also an item level 90, which I'm guessing is like the upper limit of item levels type of thing. And those were showcased in the range of like, there was one for like 37k and one for like 50k.
Right. Okay.
So I think that's probably what the top end is like,
Okay.
is those higher item levels. And then it's probably has some correlation to item level affixes and, you know, amount of affixes or whatever.
And from talking to them about this, they have intentionally tried to start pretty high, what they consider to be pretty high for the gold costs of buying items, because it's far easier to lower than it is to increase as far as players are concerned. Yeah, the backlash of for example, making it harder to buy items is always harder than the other way around. But an interesting thing is as well, the gold factor is mostly for the lower end stuff, like where the currency cost isn't much of a bottleneck. So like to buy an item that's 1 exalt or 2 exalts, currency is not a bottleneck at all, right? Like anyone can make that currency in a map or whatever. They're just going to have that lying around in between their couch cushions. So there's no barrier there. So the barrier needs to be the playtime, which equals gold. Gold is effectively a stand-in for playtime. But for really expensive items that they expect are going to be like worth, 10 divines or much more, they don't need to really cost that much more gold. They'll cost a bit more, but gold isn't really needed as a bottleneck there. So it could just cost 10k gold or something, like 2 maps worth of gold or something. It wouldn't be a problem because it doesn't need to be restricted in that same way. Do you guys think there is something bad? Like, do you think that there is a drawback to this, that, to having our wish it granted? Are we losing something here? What's
Not-
the
not-
Pure
actual
upside.
vote?
There's no
Not in
way this
current
was a bad
PoE.
wish.
No.
There's no shot.
You reckon?
It's pure.
Interesting.
God, there's no way. There's no way it backfires. It's the best thing ever.
Okay. I'll actually though then, because so I love trade. I wanted this more than anything, but at the same time, I do believe that there is a significant drawback to this, that it is inevitable that the bar for the item that you find to upgrade, to be able to find and drop something or craft something to equip yourself, that bar is going up massively. Like, the supply here is increasing. I don't even know how many times. Like, I've tried to estimate this, so I anticipate something like, okay, just the amount of offline players who are now online 24/7 by the virtue of the fact that this is asynchronous and you can buy offline players' gear has gone up by about 5 times. Thinking about like what sort of availability people might have, possibly more than that. Like, how much do people? What's the average player playing who's like selling a bunch of stuff a few hours a day, maybe? And then on top of that, the amount of like selling stuff because it's easier to do so, and this is probably why they didn't do the tab pricing, has gone up by several times as well. So multiplying the multipliers, we're getting like 20 to 40 times more items. I wouldn't be surprised, right? Like, especially at the lower ends. Higher end item supply probably doesn't change much with this, because all that stuff was being sold anyway. Like, you were going to sell a 10 div item no matter what, and the effort was a small factor. But for like the items that you put on your character to progress from level 70 to level 80 content, about half of that was stuff that I found or crafted myself in PoE 2, which feels like a good place to be. I do think that will be like maybe one item in my entire character I might find myself now. So that's my actually though for this. Like, I do think something is lost here. Gold is a way that they can try and tune this, but I don't think they can possibly rein it in.
How on earth was half your gear not? I think I was like 100% of my gear was bought by the time I was like in maps.
I think you go to a kind of a different level of optimization than what I do, Lance.
I'm like, this
But
thing's
yes,
garbage. Like, I have my weighted
100%.
sub search over here. Let me click that real quick.
I think I'm a good bridge between where you're at and where a lot of the like a mythical average player might be. I'm probably more closer to them a lot of the time. So I wouldn't be surprised if like a lot of people are wearing like a suboptimal set of gear, which means that half of their stuff is stuff they had themselves.
Yeah.
Although there is kind of a weird overlappy area there where like you have the knowledge to make good enough items, but you're also casual enough to use them. It kind of happens, but you're not quite good enough to make the items that you would buy. Like, there's a weird kind of like section of the Venn diagram I probably fall in there where I have the knowledge.
That
but I'm
sounds like
also
it's the
casual.
section of the Venn diagram where you're having fun.
Yeah.
I think that
I
seems like a
do.
good
I
place to
do.
be.
Yes, there's this little Ziggy section in there. There's like a noob who knows a lot and probably shouldn't be a noob, but still is. That's me right in the middle of these like overlapping circles. So, I want to talk more about the implications here. Like, do you guys think the social impact is lost or is it improved with this?
I think it's improved. I think the
Okay,
animosity.
say more.
Okay, I think the animosity towards each. each other, like us as players, I think the animosity goes down. Because there are less times where you find that it's the fault is on the seller. The fault will entirely be on you because you weren't fast enough. There was no ill intent with one of these. Like there's no malice in putting an item up too low and you missed it. You just missed it, so it's your fault. So you can't blame anyone. Right, it's the other way around. There's you constantly like these fucking guys. I can't stand this, and you want to ignore everyone, dude. I'm never trading with you again, and all the scams and all the you get message and they change the text, and you're constantly just thinking, is this guy for real right now? Is there some underhanded stuff going on? And you just trade, and you see a lot of people coming in and out in your hideout, and maybe you have a conversation. Maybe you're in your hideout. Some guy comes in, oh shit, welcome to my shop. And it's just gonna be, you know, fun. Like, you're just gonna have a conversation with the person coming in and like buying the item, because you know he's there and he is going to pick up the item, because he can't, there's not gonna be a conversation where this doesn't happen. He will just get the item he wants, so he's happy. You're selling your item, you're happy.
This is like, okay, you go, Lance. Go.
I was gonna say, okay, so yes, you're not going to have as many of those negative interactions, but the interactions as a whole, I think, is going to be largely pretty gone, because you're going to say, hey, what's up? And as you're typing it, he has already poured it out because he grabbed the item and he's gone, you know? Like, I feel like there won't be the bad social interactions, but I think also there will be just a lot less of the social interaction. I think but maybe like the window shopping thing, and maybe you get the situation where you start window shopping and you see some other item price, and then you're like, okay, that price is crazy. You start haggling them, and I don't know, but I feel like it'll be a lot less just interacting overall, mostly just get the item, nope out.
Here though, okay. Let's assume that let's assume someone comes in and he sees you have a lot of certain things that often pop up in your shop. He'll be like, yo, could you sell me those? I'll buy them in bulk from you. That could happen. I'm just saying, it doesn't have to be gone. Like how many interactions did you really have before through trade? Like how many interactions before actually came from trade? Maybe you had a lot. I had like none at this point.
So I think I had a decent amount, but not a ton.
Right.
One of chat's comments was like 5 per league, and I actually think that's like a pretty accurate assessment. It's
5 per league.
I would have like 5 positive experiences per league, and they were memorable, and I love them. And there's a chance that those go down, but I can't help but draw like parallels to real life here. I can't exactly think of quite the right kind of analog to this, but it's like being in a situation where everyone's frustrated and forced to interact with each other. Like, yeah, there'll be some positive interactions. Maybe you make some friends, but there's also going to be a lot of really frustrated people who are interacting with each other because they have to. Versus everyone kind of being happy, and maybe they have a shared hobby and they interact only because they want to. So it's by choice. So I think when those positive interactions happen by choice, they'll probably be even more fun, because it didn't happen out of a forced scenario, like it will be because someone's like browsing your items and they see that you're in your hideout, and you have a little chat about something, or you do start haggling on another item. So I actually I saw an interesting thread on Reddit that was very divided. Someone was saying like, we're totally going to get people who see an item listed for 5C in our tab and they say, I'll give you 3C for it. And some people are like, that's amazing. That sounds really fun. I'm totally going to do that if they message me like that. And other people are like, I'm instantly blocking that person. And I felt good about it. That's a pretty interesting divide there.
Well, there's a huge divide between the pro haggle and the anti haggle.
I am looking forward to those people who want to negotiate for like other items that I have after they find the item that they went there for. But yes, people like trying to I can see if it's a constant swarm of people like trying to lowball you, is standing in your hideout, lowballing you, spamming skills and stuff like that. I can definitely see that being an annoying thing. So I don't even know where I fall on the
Do
divide
you
of
guys think
that.
there's
But
going to be a scenario where people are crashing hideouts, like just like
surely,
they have
yeah.
some crazy spammy build and they're going around just
Yes.
intentionally crashing hideouts?
Yes.
100%. This will force GGG to look at some of those issues, I suspect. They already have put some thought into this. So there's the ability to kind of like quarantine them. Jonathan was talking about the idea of like having like a bouncer that you can place so that only traders can only go in this section and your party members can go elsewhere. And like, so the hideout limit is like 36 people or something. And they made it so that only 20 or 24 or something can be traders, so that there's enough slots left, or maybe it's like 20, 30 and 24. So there's enough slots left for you and your party members without like, you can't get into your own hideout because it's full of people buying stuff, for example.
Yeah.
But yes, there'll definitely be issues where it's like, oh, the goblin troops. There's an army of goblin troops in my hideout.
Odd.
I can't get away from them.
Psychological warfare.
But of course, the other angle on this is that they can give everyone goblin troops, and then they can sell an MTX that like eats the goblins. So
True.
they can, invent the problem and sell the solution.
Though, Ziggy. It doesn't actually stop the sound. It's a false lie of an animation because they're still playing.
I didn't know that. Oh dear. Yeah, but I am 100% sure there'll be some dramas there. But it's weird though. Like, I'm trying to find those dramas just because like I'm tuned that way after all these years with analyzing the problems of whatever GGG says they're going to do, whatever nice thing they're giving us. I'm like, here's all the problems with it. Can't help it at this point.
This is all upside. Like with this one, this is all upside. Even I actually think when I'm thinking about the fact that they're not giving us like a full tab you can just dump tabs.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a good idea. On a bit of thought, because one of the things
actually though, for sure.
Okay, I'll actually though. Okay, we'll do
You're
this.
actually there off
But
that
no,
one.
but it's my actual opinion. This is
Make it
not
a clippable quote, please.
Okay. But here's the thing. One of the things I think Pee-wee has suffered from is the seller buyer disparity, or disparity in that the seller had all the power and the buyer had none. And I think flipping that is much better, because if the buyer needs to spend time on putting things up, and that's where this is where the friction needs to be. The friction needs to be on putting the item up for trade. Buying it needs to be the seamless thing. So this is where you get the friction, where you don't get too many items on the market, by putting the friction on the sell, like on the sale, not on the purchase.
That's 100% the intention, in my opinion. That's definitely what they're going for. But I have to I have to say though, I have to say these words. It's using the exact same argument they made for not doing instant trade out, of like having the friction be in user experience. And I do suspect that will be like a user experience friction point that people will.
It's not the worst friction.
Fixed.
I think the other friction. I think the friction of someone. The friction of someone just repricing the item after you're like 5C, and that's the buyout price. Okay, and then they release it for 10. Okay, I'll buy it for 10C. And then they release it at the end, 20C. I'll buy it for 20C.
Oh,
it's like that friction is
complaining
way
about
worse.
Being too cold, right? Yeah, like this is like, it's so far improved that like any problems that come out of this, I think, are worth the cost. But let's make a prediction then. What do you think will be the biggest issue with this? Let's prediction time.
Bot snipes.
What do you think? Bot snipes. Okay, yeah, I've heard that talked about. Yeah,
I think the biggest issue is gonna be that people are gonna be upset about is, I think it's gonna be the bulk trade, the not being able to list a tab and put things in there.
Okay. I do agree with both of those things, that they're going to be probably pretty big. But I'll say a third different one in the interest of having different predictions. And mine will be, I think the biggest issue will be people in people's hideouts all the time. Lots of people in your hideout.
I can't wait.
We haven't had people in hideout. As a streamer, I've had moments where there's been a lot of people spamming skills in my hideout, and you may be able to quarantine them, and in some of the bigger hideouts that might work. But I think there's going to be some people with some nice
Isn't
small
it attached
hideouts.
to Ange though? Like, can you even quarantine? Because you need to interact with Ange yourself to list items, right? Can you even quarantine
Yes.
that? Because you're gonna have to manually go there.
Yeah. So like, and sometimes a little tiny thing can be really annoying. That's repetitive. So if someone is kind of just out of earshot, but you can kind of hear their random ice skills spamming constantly in the background, that's going to be very annoying. So I
Just thinking of
anticipate that that
the
will be the
minion
biggest
players
issue
with
with
the
this.
specters that have those like
Yes.
repeating skills. Every time I'm like trading with them, I'm like, please get me out of here as fast as possible. Get me out. Get me out.
Oh
Make it
god.
stop.
Yeah, it was those bone ones or whatever in Path of Exile 1 that were just like making that constant chittering sound.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yes. Yeah, I will say the minion players are usually the worst because they're always coming to your hideout and like you get people who are like, I'm going to put desecrate blood all over your hideout, and they desecrate and detonate the corpses until your hideout is all giblets. It's like making a carpet in your hideout. Some people.
You got no respect.
Yeah, got no respect. Yeah, take your shoes off when you come into my hideout. I do actually think, yeah, I think that overall the social thing is going to be improved. I think those are good predictions for our anticipated problems. I'm curious about the sniping issue, Nugi. Do you have any further thoughts on that? The bot sniping thing? Like, what is the implication of that? Like, what does it mean if bots are buying your low-priced items before anyone else? So the obvious part is that it
Well,
means that it's harder for humans to get deals.
yes, and I think like if you're trying to like let's say you want to have a session, and every time you try and have a session, we're like, oh, I'm trying to get some good items. I'm gonna get first, and every time it happens, or like if you start noticing a pattern of like you come in and it's this you see the same name or something, right, and you start seeing that happening again and again and again for like specific things, and it's like and it's not just one day. I don't know if it becomes apparent that there are bots buying the item before you, people will get very upset. I would get very upset. I'll be very disappointed. It's kind of inevitable though, I think, but
how's it different to what the system is now, really, though? Like, bots can snipe unpriced items now just as well,
yeah,
as
yeah,
far as I
yeah.
can see.
Yes. There's no it's
Hmm.
not less of an issue. It just becomes
More visible,
the
do you
issue.
think?
Yeah, because the other
Okay.
issues are gone, right?
True.
And
Yes,
they're
true.
always like they can they can always do it. Like they're there all the time. So it's like I don't know. It's I don't know. I think maybe I don't know. Maybe like it'll
I
create a
don't know.
weird
Are
it'll
they
create a
actually
weird
gonna
market
have?
for it'll create a weird market for things that sell for gold.
Yeah, so that's a topic. So usually, like on paper, the idea of gold is really, really effective for dealing with like trade bots and like exploitative traders because the amount of the quantities that they want to do things at is so far removed from the regular player that the amount of gold that they need is ridiculous and not something that they can really get themselves. If they're also trying to like run a bot who's trading all the time, they can't also be farming gold with another bot. They would have to like swap and change, so it limits them heavily. But there's been talked about this issue that currently the solution is that you can buy like 1,000 maps and vendor them for gold. So there's a potential problem there. Do you guys foresee this being an issue?
I mean, it's just a guess,
You
right?
think the maps will cost less gold on trade to buy?
So
Like when didn't they set up the system
you
so it's like a net loss based on the gold
well,
value of
yeah.
the
So in this
item?
case, you bulk buy, right? Like you use TFT, or this will be the role of things like that, or using because the pre-existing trade system is not going away. You'll still be able to, and there might even be some cases where you prefer to sell things without using your instant auction housey thing. But so yeah, these will be bulk trades without gold cost. There will always be a supply available for that sort of thing, right? So I mean the solution I've seen, which is a little funny but could work, is people talking about the idea of once something is trade, it can't be vended for gold anymore. Which is kind of
Yes.
like, I don't really like the idea of like soulbound stuff, but maybe this is an instance of that is okay. It's not
Through this
exactly
system,
like
yes.
soulbound, but
It
yeah,
doesn't it
because
doesn't stop you from retrading it, right? So it's not soul bound. It just stops you from
yeah,
vendoring it to buy gold
like
essentially.
Yeah. In what situation would a normal person be buying items in large quantities off other players to vendor for gold, right? Like, I'm
Like
sure there are
never.
some players who are like, oh, I do that because I want lots of gold. Like, okay, yeah. So that would be probably the only cost of that, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe people would do it if, like, I guess there's like the gold rotations in PoE 1. I guess for PoE 2, I don't feel like there's as much of a need for gold, or it's not feels like it's like you need it as much. But that's because PoE 1 has like King's March and stuff like that, where commentators, I feel like it's more demanding of gold. PoE 2, I never felt like I need gold for this or that. It seemed like you always had way more than you needed for just
So
regular play.
this will be one to check back in on the next episode and see if we
Yeah.
so our plan, if you guys don't know, is to do like one a week or so into the new league, and we follow up on our predictions basically to see, you know, what sort of things have emerged in hindsight now. So that'll be one to monitor for sure. I'm interested to hear if you folks have any other predictions, not necessarily for negative things, but just for like any quirks or almost like tips or anything like that. So I'll give you an example. I suspect that my prediction is that live searching for popular or common items will be a bad experience under this new system, because it will be much more cases of like so before you would if you were live searching a lot, you'd no doubt run into the experience where you like message them and you don't get a response. Yeah, that's expected like
Right.
99% of the time when you're live searching common items, because other people are doing the same thing and they got it first. In this case, you will click the button and go to their hideout. So the effort that it takes to live search and go to their hideout to try and get the item isn't just a message while you're mapping like it was before that doesn't get responded to, which you were accepting that was going to be the case, so it wasn't that frustrating. Usually the frustration is from the expectation that you'll get a response, right? But in this case, you actually have to physically go to their hideout and find out that someone else already got it. So I think there's going to be a frustration when trying to buy common items, and that will come up mostly when live searching, I suspect. You guys have any other
I think that
predictions?
I can see that for the live search, like you're trying to get a deal, like you're trying to get a snipe on something. But
Yeah,
I
it's like
think it's
okay, right?
most of the times where I feel like I've run into the frustration of trade, it's for like these weird niche things where it's like, oh, this item's been listed for 4 days. No one's competing for this item. I am the only one messaging this guy. And the guy gets the ping and he says, oh, somebody messaged me for an item. They want to buy it. Guess it's time to up my price. That's for me when I run into that sort of thing. Whereas, like, if you're live searching, you're trying to snipe thing for like undervalue, I think you accept the fact that you're competing with a bunch of people at that point.
Yes, yeah, and it's what I've often said about this whole issue is that the frustration from the trade experience always came from the difference between expectation and reality. Like, you see an item listed there, it's the exact item you want. In theory, all you have to do is click a button and then make the trade. It takes 5 seconds and you'll have the item you want. You expect that will work because that's the way it's presented, but it doesn't. And that's where the
You get
frustration
EU
comes from.
servered and you get beaten by the Texan
Can
with their
you
faster load time.
can you actually go to the hideout, go into the screen and see the item disappear as you're clicking it?
I bet there's gonna be clips. There's gonna be clips for sure. Of it
Sure.
vanishing
I look
as
forward
like
to it.
somebody's going to click
Hilarious.
it.
God, imagine just
So-
being there and the item just like it's the perfect item for your build. Gone.
A second too slow, buddy.
Oh my.
Do you have any economic predictions about how this is going to affect the economy? Feel like there almost has to be like a massive kind of more rapid dropping out of like the bad to decent item market, right? Where everything ends up being priced as like
I
one lesser result or something.
the way I could see this going is I think mid tier to like starter gear stuff is going to be more readily available than ever,
Mhm.
because there's this situation where you say, I wouldn't list this because of the time it's going to take me to trade, but now I
Yep.
might list it because it's not going to take that much time. So I think
Yeah,
that
I'll
will
do
be
that.
better. But what I think will end up happening is the chase items, the power items, the way the good players can acquire wealth with this new system is going to be pretty increased. And thus I think that stuff is going to spike faster. Like
Mm.
like things like, let's say Hinakora Locks is like a super chase item commodity, or like let's say Astromentis is really chase, like those sort of things I think will spike faster than they would in a normal league, because your currency acquisition is just way more powerful if you can sell items while you're sleeping.
Another prediction is that selling like crap gear the first 2 days of the league with the free weekend, it's gonna be insane. You'll be able to sell so much crap gear.
It'd be a madhouse.
So another topic of discussion for this, which is a potential bummer, is that there is no free starter tab for this. It has to be purchased. So we've always had this box price pay to win aspect of Path of Exile, where it's expected at some point after you play the game for a while, if you want to trade, you spend $20 on tabs. It's the same in theory, like it's not a difference, but it feels more significant here now for some reason to me, like in a way that I can't quite put my finger on now. Like I was making a pretty strong argument. I was strongly arguing when I was there for the idea of like giving people a half tab when they like get to Act 3 or something, like for free, because I think it just makes business sense too. Like give people a free taste.
Yeah,
So,
get them more
that's not the
hooked
plan
onto
currently.
the.
How do you guys feel about the
Pay to win
Do you
aspect
think it's like
is a non-issue, I think. Like it's gonna be for the totality of what you should be buying for your account, it's small. It's like a small amount.
Yeah,
So I don't think
it's a box price. I view it as, but do you feel like a free Path of Exile player who hasn't spent any dollars should have access to the ability to sell like this? I feel like it'd be good for getting them invested
Do
in
they
the
not
game
have
too.
at least one tab? Like a
No,
singular
They have
tab?
the normal
trade.
4, but they're not merchant tabs.
Yeah. So you have your normal 4 tabs, and the
Like the way you have to
justification was
trade
kind
is
of always a bit flimsy, but it was like, in theory, you could still trade but using other methods with those original tabs, but not really.
You don't even have a tab to trade.
No.
no.
That's
I think
thing.
chat's
That
giving
actually-
a
that
pretty
might actually
valid
good-
point. A lot of
good
people in
thing.
chat are saying you
No, no.
giving trade to bots. Which
Think
I think
about
is
it
pretty
this
fair
way.
as well.
But like this is essentially combating bots. They would
Yeah.
have
How much-
to. No, but there's
A.
no, but there's
Okay.
but the whole there's a lot, like the whole like adding like the purchase. I'm not sure how
Mhm.
purchase works, but like it's not so much that it's a big cost or anything. It's more like they have to, actually go and pay through some service.
Yeah, the hurdle of that. Well, I'll tell you though that is in theory a good strategy. It generally is just like any serious botting outfit is just using credit card fraud to do that sort of thing, which
Is it?
is a pain in the butt for them.
I
as
think
well.
I have good. I don't know if it's actually good counterpoint, but so the argument is they're doing a free weekend where you say, oh, wouldn't it be nice to give them a tab so they could trade? But Path of Exile itself, everybody's first experience is it is a free game. You download it, you get to play it, and then you decide, do I like this game enough to buy a tab? And a weekend, I think, is enough time that somebody could make that decision anyways, or they could decide whether or not they're going to try it again when it fully releases, right? Like, isn't it not the same entry point that's always been there?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it is basically kind of the same as it's always been, just that box price, and I think it's honestly pretty reasonable. And to be honest, most new players in that first week of their gameplay are probably only ever buying items, not selling them. So not having tabs to sell is the thing. But I think that it would be a net positive to do it though, to like have a small tab to be able to like sell a couple of items.
Yeah.
As a way, and I look at it from the perspective of like people learning to trade, right? Like,
I think
as a barrier to entry to get people learning to trade.
Once you enter in game, I think you should have one, because that's kind of like where it starts.
Mhm.
That whole cycle starts the moment you're
Great.
like at the end of the campaign.
Hmm.
And then you like honestly, then you've also onboarded them through the entire campaign, and they're probably gonna stick around for a while because then they want to explore everything else, and that takes a while.
Yeah, I reckon the moment someone makes a sale, their first sale, their percentage chance of like playing the game long term, shoots up. Like I reckon. And so on that topic, another note here I had was that an anticipated effect of this is the addictive nature of Path of Exile is going to get a bit stronger here, because so we felt this with shipping in Path of Exile 1, where you would send off all your ships when you logged off for the day, and then in the morning you'd be a bit more excited to log in the next day to get all of your like stuff. It's like, ooh, I wonder how many sales I've made. So we're going to get that now. You're going to be having that, oh, I need to log in and see how many sales I've made while I've been AFK, or while I'm at work, or while I've been sleeping. It's like, oh, I'm just going to jump on in the morning and check my thing and reprice my items, because you're gonna log into a little pile of currency there, which then you're like, oh, I can buy an upgrade for my character. Like that, the game is instantly becoming more addictive out of that. I think that log into currency thing is very strong. There's a reason mobile games do daily login bonuses and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a strong motivator.
Like
Guys,
I
think
said,
that's-
pure upside, baby. I'm logging back in.
Yes, I love it. I do have some concern for some people who have like particularly addictive personalities for that sort of thing, obviously. Just the same as like I enjoy the mystery boxes and they're not harmful to me, but I also like feel a bit icky about them at the same time for people that they're really bad for. So I think that that's going to be, this will be bad for some people. So it's a good thing to just keep in mind. If you know that you're that person, that might be a good thing to keep in mind. I don't really know what the answer to it is though. Like, it's not like you turn off your trades or something. No one's gonna do that.
I feel like since PoE it's not like there's no real money transactions going on here with that system. The reason why mystery boxes are so much worse is because they actually affect your wallet,
Really?
and especially if you don't have the means but you're addicted, it's really destructive.
But
PoE,
that's a bigger
it is
line,
actually
sure.
a free-to-play game. And I mean, if you are like, oh, but I need 2 more tabs, it's not the end of the world. I mean, that level of commitment is not the end of the world, if anything.
Yes.
So I feel like
Yes.
if for the type of game that kind of like, for the games that actually trigger this like gambling addiction thing, PoE is one of the better ones.
Yeah,
like
this
out
is
there.
the
It's probably
nicotine patch.
it's like there's nothing within the actual game. Like we go to MTX, yes, you have a problem, but like the game doesn't have any of it. It doesn't enforce
Yeah.
anything that makes you spend money. So I think it's, of all the games out there, PoE is like probably what you want those players to be in.
And I will note, because I mentioned this anytime this comes up on the mystery box topic, you can actually write support if you have gambling problems, and they will disable it on your account so that you can't buy them or be exposed to them. So that's worth noting. So that if Path of Exile is your safe harbor because it's just video game gambling, it's fine. Then you can get rid of that real gambling aspect to like keep it your safe harbor. It's worth mentioning. Did we have any other notes on trade? There was one other thing. It has been hinted at a little bit. I don't know how much I can say about this, but hinted at the idea that they may be interested in exploring the idea of getting awakened trade in game as well. I'm 100% pro this. I think this would be amazing for people learning to trade. How do you guys feel about that idea? Is that a huge thing they should rush? Do you think it's a good idea, bad idea?
I think they should
don't know.
actually rush this, honestly, because I remember. Okay,
Think they should?
so I'm not like an advanced pro player in Torchlight. So Torchlight Infinite has the price taking option, but I use it, and it's such an easy tool because it's like you just click the item, and then it shows you the affixes that you can check for, and it gives you insight on like what is an item, like what is an affix worth. It's very hard to like evaluate an item because items are like a combination of all these affixes and like the power of that, and you can be like, well, there's so many of these, they sell for nothing, but I've heard that or whatever, like, and then you start looking and it's like, oh, this because like PoE, especially with Combinator, PoE 2, T1 affix is something you would probably check. And you're like, oh, I have a T1 affix, is that worth anything? And then all of a sudden you start like, for every time you check something, now you're like building like a mind map of what is worth something, what's not. And then you see two T1 items together and you're like, oh, that must be a lot. Let me check. This whole exercise is how you learn PoE's item system, I think. So I think you're right. It would onboard players onto PoE's item system very well.
How they implement it as well is a really big deal for like, you can tutorialize the process of learning to price check things based on how you implement the user experience for this. So having a nice so if you haven't used Awaken Trade yet, I highly recommend it. Awaken Trade is a little piece of software you can install that allows you to press Control D on an item, and it will bring up a quick price checking tool. And you can checkbox affixes. It automatically fills out what the item is, any special features of it. It tries to guess the most likely sort of things that you would want to price check. But there is a skill to price checking, and that's knowing which affixes don't matter a lot of the time. So which things to uncheck. So you've got checkboxes. You check or uncheck the things that you think are relevant to the price. And then you can adjust. There's like a slider bar to adjust like the maximum and like threshold, so you can kind of get items that are similar to yours. And there's a skill to that, but that visual of checkbox and slider bars is really good for like kind of physically learning how to price check, and how they implemented that in game. They put a lot of thought to that. Could go a long way to how easy it is to learn to price like and sell items. So I really want them to do it.
Since they
I
have
encourage you guys to use Awaken Trade if you haven't.
Since they have like the in-game auction house or the in-game thing already, right? So now that it's already built into the game, I mean, I don't know if I don't know how if it's difficult at all, but I know in Torchlight what you do is there's this like a little scale, you know, the two scales that indicate this is an auction house. It's just like a little icon at the top of an item, and you just click it, and then you're immediately price checking anywhere, and it works really well.
I think I'm a little bit different than you guys in that. Yeah, I think it would be a nice tool, but I don't feel like I'd rather than put priority into dev work into other things personally. Like, and like, I would just.
So, but okay, this is okay.
I feel like it's something you can get currently if you really want it. Like there are tools that exist that the players that want it can get that functionality already. But
There's
you
such a
can't
big
go and
divide
delete
between-
towers. Somebody else has got to do that. That's the devs.
Okay, so the false equivalency aside of like the dev who deletes towers probably isn't the same person who works on the UI for something like this. That aside, I do think there's a huge divide between the people that will install Awaken Trade versus use an in-game feature. Then that's why the in-game browser is, despite for many of us, we might not even use it. Like we might still use the browser one because it's better in some small way we care about. But for a lot of people, that actually being a thing in-game is such a big difference. And the standard of quality is higher for GGG than it is for third parties as well. So it'll need to work better and be presented better as well. And it is an opportunity for them to like consider the impacts that the design has as well, like in how it communicates item value and the important features of an item, so they can more closely match kind of their vision. Dangerous word, but with implementing that. So that's why I strongly disagree with you, Lance.
Okay. Well, I'll use a better example than towers because yes, it's different devs. I'll give an example, which is the current trade site does not support pseudo freaking search functionality.
Yes.
Which I would value much higher than having an in-game trade search.
Well,
like
yes,
there's
I
other
also want
things.
that.
I don't know. I think it would be a positive thing if it's not hard for them and whatever, sure. But I don't know. I just think there's other things that are I'd personally rather see first. That's just it ultimately doesn't matter that much.
I hope they gave that one
though.
guy who. I hope they gave that one guy who works on the trade site. So there's just one person who does that. I hope they gave them like an assistant or something with this, so that they can do the in-game stuff as well. All right. Do we have any further topics on trade? Like I could talk about trade all day, but
let me just comment on what you guys just talked about. I think this idea that they focus on anything, or like I think whenever they actually engage and they start looking at these tools, they learn something. They become better, and I think it's the same thing when will PoE 1 suffer from PoE 2? I mean, we're probably getting asynchronous trade in PoE 1 because of PoE 2. It probably doesn't happen in PoE 1 for like forever unless that happens. So one thing doesn't necessarily take away from another. Maybe in the short term, but I think this getting an item like user experience correct, getting the item system correct, getting all these functions is something that in the short term it's not like what everyone wants, but I think it just it informs every other decision that they do, and having them actually go through this exercise I think is really important. I think they have relied for so long on third parties, and they've kind of like I think it's created problems in house because they've solved issues that should have been solved by them.
This is a really good point, actually, because yeah, this is a really interesting point. There are things that they don't experience. And this is like not really saying like they don't play their own game, because obviously they do. It's like such a huge part of how they actually even develop the game. But there is stuff that they don't experience the same way that we experience. And this came up recently. I was talking about like the process of how you purchase jewels, and I'm like, the average dev who's like testing stuff and playing the game and stuff actually isn't going to really run into that often. Welcome back, folks. We are moving on to our next topic for the day, which is a controversial question by Lance, which I'm paraphrasing, but should we have passive trees and other critical build information before launch to plan our builds? Yes or no? And before we discuss, I would like to provide one hard truth about us streamers and content creators that we have to accept and acknowledge our bias. And that is that it's really hard for us to be comfortable with not being prepared and not being experts and not being better than our viewers at some things. It's really hard to do. This is a hard truth that we have to acknowledge about ourselves, and it might be a little bit confronting, but there is a strong bias here as us content creators to be able to plan and tinker beforehand so that we can look good. All right. What are your two thoughts on this? Lance, what do you got to say?
I would like to say that I don't know what he's talking about. I just like to be able to answer a question if they come in and ask me what's the build, Lance? What are we gonna do? Okay, and I'll be like, I could say, hey, here's the tree, here's the plan, but I can't personally. I think this came up earlier in my stream. Is I like the idea of going in blind. I think that's very fun. Like if I was just playing, I would love to do that. The problem for me is just this is content creator only thing is when people come in to ask, hey, what are you gonna do? What's the tree? Do you have the update? I can't give them an answer because the tree's not there. And I think there's a large amount of people that want to be able to plan their builds ahead of time that aren't even necessarily content creators, but they just want to be able to like theory craft. And part of getting excited about a character is knowing what your options are. Like they mentioned, for example, this lightning archon thing, and they gave you kind of a brief description. It sounds cool. Well, I want to know what the hell a fire archon does or a cold archon does. Maybe I'd want to plan a build around that, but I don't have that information. So next thing you know, I'm clicking Deadeye because that's just a safe option that everybody else says, okay, this is mostly not changed and it's good. And there's a large amount of community. It's probably just like pulling back from what they might want to try or think about because they don't have the information to be excited about it.
What's your gut feeling on it overall, Nugi?
Well,
We'll get into the nitty after.
So I prefer not having information and running with it. That's my preference. On certain, I don't know, maybe it is a bit weird because there's a lot of things that are changing where an existing skill now changes, so you can't play that one even. But I will say, overall, I prefer going in blind. And I would say, when Lance also says, well, I like going in blind, I was like, but a lot of my viewers want to know such and such. But then I'm like, if we like this experience, why don't we think that our viewers like this experience? Like, why wouldn't they be able to enjoy it just as much as we do? It's like one of those, how I look at it. And I'm like, I think a lot of content creators create this FOMO for people where it's like, because we constantly say and speak out loud how important it is to have your build or it's gonna suck, you're gonna be behind, and all of these things, we're creating like this demon where it's like, oh no, this is gonna be terrible being behind. Rather than being like, yo, it's gonna be so much fun, we're all gonna go in blind, yo, I can't wait to hear what you guys are gonna do. Right? And hyping up the like that part of the experience, we keep telling everyone like it's gonna suck and it's gonna be so bad and we might it doesn't matter. It's just a video game.
It's true. There's a lot of clicks in making tier lists, right? Like it's another truth there. That's why I quite like this question, because on the surface it seems like a very simple question of like, well, it ruins the game to solve everything before launch. And there is a truth to that. And it's also true that, like, on the other hand, not knowing things and not being able to do some sort of planning and things like that, it has some costs, and for some people it's really stressful and anti-fun. There's a lot of truth to both sides of this argument that I find quite compelling. So I think an interesting nuance here is this this problem of people not being creative if they have less planning. Because there's this idea that, like, okay, if you can plan everything and everything's solved ahead of time, people aren't going to be creative. They're just going to play the best build. They're going to play the meta thing, right? And there's a truth to that. But at the same time, if you have so much unknowns and, man, you have limited time to spend gaming, you've taken time off work, that time is very valuable to you, and you want to have a good time. If you are really worried that whatever build it is that you want to do, because it looks cool from the preview, is going to be a shit experience, you're going to have a bad time, you're going to kind of effectively waste your time there and walk away from it being like, oh man, I should have done something else with my time, then that's going to, the natural reaction to that is to play it safe. Play a build that you know works. So that you get forced back to the meta again by not having the ability to plan.
Well, I think I think there are two ways of looking at that, because if everything gets revealed and the things you thought looked cool are now being shown to be not great skills and be below par in the meta, you're immediately gonna go back to the meta because that thing actually sucked. So by knowing it creates, it's the same thing, just it's a lose-lose on that front, I think.
I think
think
there's an element, and I'm gonna just butt in here a little bit.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
is the thing is, though, you don't know 100% sure, even if everybody is saying this is the best thing, time and time again, league start after league start, let's say everybody started X build, throughout the course of the league, there's largely amount of times that a build will be shown that wasn't talked about at league start or wasn't really thought about, emerges because somebody did something creative and good and proved that it wasn't the best. And I think to say that we know, even if we have the information, what's going to be the best, I don't think that's ever necessarily 100% accurate. Because I think a lot of times you can think something's the best, but if you don't play it in practice, how the hell do you really know it is the best? Besides just besides actually getting to play it.
Yeah, I take that as an argument to let players plan as much as they want, because they're not going to be able to find out the best thing ahead of time anyway. Like, is that the way that you feel that is?
That's the counterpoint I'm giving towards
that's the take.
It doesn't predetermine 100% with accuracy.
So I think what we've established is that there's like a spectrum here, and either end, either the too much ability to plan or the not enough ability to plan, there is a pushback to playing what is established the best thing, or a reduction in creativity or an increase in stress, right? Because like not having like some rough thing to plan might like, I know an experience for me is like quite often I am pretty bad about picking my build and planning my build beforehand, so I don't have a tree, and then I'm like, in game, when I want to be kind of just jamming and enjoying the leveling process, I'm having to make those decisions, which usually are very fun decisions. Like planning a build is fun, making those decisions is fun, but trying to make them while you're playing the game actually can be a lot less fun for some people, and myself included in that one.
I think
so. We've established there's a spectrum. So where on the spectrum do you think we should be? What should be available, and to what extent?
Well, I think so for GG to like make a decision here, like what needs to be revealed, what needs to not be revealed. I think that the key part here is what happens if we don't. Okay, so if you don't reveal anything, and you want players to also be creative, because you want players to be creative, you want players to test things. Now, if you don't reveal everything, what you absolutely need to do is you need to find a way to let players recover. The recovery is the key here. If you do not give players a way to recover a bad build, that's when they fall through the cracks, right? So like, for not showing everything, for not showing everything, they need to have low respec costs. That's
Agreed, yeah.
that's one of the things. For not
I like
showing
this angle.
everything, you probably need to. I mean, there needs to be a readily available amount of like gems and stuff. The tools that needs to be available for you to pivot away from a bad experience. That needs to be facilitated if you are hiding things. And I would say it's harder to hide things right now as well because, okay, right now it's probably, and I'm like thinking here, and I'm thinking, do I even want them to hide things? Because it just creates more opportunity for them to miss things, especially through an early access and like more of a beta experience. Like, let the players help you find the broken things is probably a good idea. And
Beforehand, yes.
I can
That
tell you
happens.
this right now. A lot of people have no clue what was good last league. They will have no clue what's good next league. And none of the best builds have been found yet. Like, very few of the best builds like kind of emerged last league as well. I mean, it's like there's, even if you did the last league over again right now, you probably new builds would emerge even with the repeat of last league. So it's like one is so much in the dark right now that there is like hiding things don't really do that much.
I don't know if this is actually the case, but I remember, I'm probably going to misquote him, but I think Local Identity, who does POB, was saying ahead of time part of the reason we don't have the tree is because they haven't picked a data format for how they're going to display it online, and maybe they would intentionally want to give us the passive tree, but since they haven't gone to that level of progression on how they want to do that, that's maybe the reason they're doing it. I don't know if that's actually, if it's more of a
It's
limitation versus a
definitely,
decision.
I mean, even just in a broader sense, it's definitely like a problem that they can't actually give us stuff super early because it's just not ready. Like, they're doing stuff up until like the moment the servers go live, pretty much. So
Yeah.
ideally, I think we do get like trees and gem info a day or two before, and hopefully things get ready enough for that. But I think we went into last league with the tree not being available until after launch, right? Or
Yes.
It
something
was,
like that. It was,
we had basically just PUDB did the data mine, and you basically had like a grayed out tree where you could hover the
yeah.
nodes and it would tell you what it did, but it wasn't like a, functional, usable tree looking at it with all the art and everything. And I think even some of the information was slightly wrong on it, or maybe I can't remember 100%, but it was a very like, 3 hours before the launch, I'm looking through, just hovering over each node. What the hell is this? Maybe I path like this,
Was that fun or stressful? And trying to disentangle the content creator versus like the player as well, if you
Fun or
can.
stressful? I mean, it was just like giving me an idea of what my generic pathing or my starting nodes were going to be. Basically saving like a few minutes, I guess, from the part where you're like, you pull up your passive tree to add your points to the tree. You hover
I
over
think
and see, okay, these are the
it
chaos
was like
wheels. How good is this? I'm going to click that when I'm going for ED or Essence Drain,
there was like a fun to the chaos, but I definitely got the sense from people that more people were stressed out about it than were having fun with the fact that like the ability to like have a rough plan of your build wasn't available until so late, until post launch. I think like in particular where a lot of the line is like the mechanics of how things work. Like if you don't find out that like Rake doesn't link to Stomping Grounds anymore until you're halfway through your build, then you're not going to have a really good time with that. Like you may not
Oh, you'd
necessarily
you'd
need
find out at
an
level.
optimized build, but yeah, you want to at least know what works. Yeah, you find out when you go to socket it and it doesn't socket
When you get
anymore.
the socket gem, yeah.
Yes. So I think like the mechanics of how things work is a good one to have available early ahead of time. Anyway, I just thought that was like a fun kind of little question there. But yeah, I like the takeaway that the less is available early, the easier it should be to respec. And that goes into gems and availability of those things as well. So something they might consider. I know this is something they have been considering. I've had this conversation with Jonathan as well. We'll go to hinging off this topic is the slog. The coined term, the slog. I've heard those words so many times from last league that they ceased to mean anything at all, if it ever did. And so last league we had a confluence of things a combination of game difficulty, the new game wearing off. I felt like was a big part of it. Like when League One, like
Out of the honeymoon
when it first
phase.
came out. Yeah. When it first came out, everything was new. But the second League, some of that's like the coolness of the bosses and stuff has worn off to the point that the thing you're more focused on is the leftover frustrations, right? So the frustrations became a bigger focus, combined with some like questionable balancing decisions and things like that. And we had a lot of things come together to have everyone saying the word the slog again and again. And this was mostly talking about, I think, campaign progression, difficulty, combat pacing, movement, kind of all those things where there's a point at somewhere where like things cease to be fun. They start to become arduous. They start to become a bit too frustrating. If you guys don't know or you didn't play long enough because you tapped out at some point, like many people did, they did actually do a lot of really good patches in like the second week plus, reducing the size of many zones, changing a lot of monsters in really good ways, changing the distribution of monsters in many ways, adding new things like runes and changing the way runes and socketing kind of worked into the role they played in the campaign. There was many changes that did
Buffing
seem to
lightning
improve things.
spear.
Yes.
Wait, did they buff
A
lightning spear?
historic
Yeah, they
change.
did.
No way.
They
I
buffed
noped
lightning
out pretty
spear.
fast. I was like, this is.
'Cause
They
It
buffed
was
it.
They were
hilarious.
so mad about the whole spear thing that they just buffed everything, including lightning spear.
Yeah, that was like the all-time greatest knee-jerk balance change that I think they've ever done. I was puzzled then at the time. I was like,
Are you,
of all the
what is
things,
happening?
because they listened to the people saying it was bad when it was really not bad. It was really good, but people were kind of like having a hard time with the overall game difficulty and the slog and like getting comfortable with the character because like there was definitely like a it took longer to get comfortable with like Spear and Amazon than it did with some other builds. And yeah, they hastily made some buffs there because of the extent of people's kind of complaints. But yes, okay. So I guess where's the line for you guys for campaign progression where it stops being like fun and challenging to where it becomes a slog? Like where is that in terms of difficulty or pacing, or what things makes something a slog for you? And do you guys feel like it was there for you, or is it there for you?
I think so. In the first 0.1 iteration of the game, we could go and remember the beetle that you could farm.
Yes.
Yes, you could
Mhm.
reset it again and
Golden
again.
beetle.
Yes, and I actually think there's not enough of that in the game. I think this is one of the key things. No, I'll explain. No, I'll explain. Not specifically that because that was
Degenerate.
over the top. Yes, that was not good. But it comes back to this whole like recovery. The game is very bad at giving you recovery options. Even I remember like I was farming the what do you call that zone leading up on the dreadnought. I was trying, it was like the and I was just trying to like farm a skill gem or something, and I went through like 12 runs and I didn't even get my gem. I was like,
Upgrade for Jomnara.
and farming like getting like the item upgrades, and you're like like transmute alting. Like let's say that you're just behind what you need in terms of power to kill Janra, and that fight is such a check on what do you call it, recovery, or like because you run out if you don't have damage,
It's a long fight.
you run out of potions, you run out of, it's like you just run out of resources. So you need to reach some amount of power so you don't run out of resources before the fight ends. So what happens then? You need to go farm, and when the game gives you nothing, like no good places to recover, to farm, to build some power, it's really tough. So I think that's been previously for me, that's been the hardest thing. Like that's been the worst part about it, is that I haven't been able to generate these like power spikes when I've needed them. And so I'm just going at this, and that means I'm going at like the same pace throughout the same thing, and it becomes the slog.
I think this is a really good point where But I don't know if your answer is the answer that I want to see. So you need a way to arrest a tailspin or a way to gain power if things are getting sloggy or too
Yes.
hard or your build's not quite working. But I don't think farming the same thing over and over, which is I know it's the classic action RPG thing, so maybe controversial take here. But I actually, though, think that the better method is to have optional side content
Yes.
that is something that has like an extra bonus the first time you do it, which is something they're doing a lot, where like there are many hidden reward features and mechanics. And they're doing some pretty creative stuff. Like, so I was being told that even like zones kind of have like an idea, like you should get an exalt in this zone, and there's several ways that the game can give it to you. It can be like a randomized chest will give it to you. So there's like guaranteed things like guaranteed exalt drops throughout the campaign. And it'll even do things like the league mechanic should give it to you in this zone. So that if you like go and do the abyss here, it will give you an exalt plus all of its other stuff. So more of that and more optional side content to be able to do that. That isn't just mandatory because it's got like a permanent buff that you have to go get or passive points unlocks or whatever. And I think that would tie into, I think they should make like side bosses drop more the first time you kill them.
Yeah.
So, like there is an element of that, but I think it could even be stronger. So that you're in that position where you want to like Yaman Ra's really hard, so you go off and kill a couple side bosses and get some fat loot rather than running a beetle over and over or farming chests or something.
I think it just needs more opportunities. There just needs more opportunities, like throughout the. And they have made good. Like I think rares are more, and chests now, like rare chests are a big upgrade. So yeah, I mean, it's moving the right direction.
What was your?
I was gonna say just in to Nugi's point, I've been doing a decent amount of like just campaign practice because we're trying to refamiliarize myself with the game. And I feel like it's been a pretty stark contrast between the 0.2 patch that I remember and now. Granted, I think Essence Drain is above average for a leveling skill, but there's definitely a large amount of guaranteed drops I've noticed throughout the campaign runs and the sizable loot buffs. And then the biggest thing that I really think, whether or not this is would people argue this is a good or a bad thing, is they've definitely nerfed some of the harder fights. Like Jamnara, for example, I don't know if I'm crazy or something, but seems significantly less of a check than it was than I remember.
They did
in terms of a lot of his mechanics seem to hit quite a bit less hard and are easier to dodge. Like where he does these like charged up slams and he like kind of tracks you. That tracking seemed to me less aggressive, where even though I'm not like, I didn't just try to do this fight 10 times in a row. I did it the first time. And even if I got hit by a couple slams, they didn't chunk me as hard and they seemed like they were easier to dodge. Like stuff like that. I think they've eased up on how difficult they want the overall level to be. At least I think that impacts that some in terms of your progression.
Jamnara is like a wildly different fight depending on the build you're playing as well. It's a boss that's like a weird hurdle for some builds. Like especially a lot of warrior builds really struggle with Jamnara, for example, but like are fine with the bosses leading up to it and then are fine afterwards. He's a weird boss. He does attrition check people, I think.
Yeah.
Like you were saying.
I think part of that is also, I think Jan'arok becomes before what's the falling hammer?
Executioner?
No, it's skill.
Yeah, I know. Hammer of the Gods.
Yes. A lot of the difficulty is like how certain archetypes gain power. Same thing with spell builds. Like before you get Archmage Gem for a while, like there are power spikes that you get throughout that are like significant. Now it's probably gotten better now, and like this new gem system might actually improve it as well, that support gem stuff. But I think this ties into why certain builds have such a hard time, is specifically because of how the
power spikes are later.
Yeah.
I definitely noticed that on Archmage was a completely different thing in 0.1 patch, but I remember thinking, like, as I was going through the campaign as a Spark, my character was like, it's pretty easy DPS, but then I got to that finally, like, Act 3 Cruel or whatever, I picked up Archmage, and I became a god, because it's, like, so much damage more than I was dealing before. There's crazy difference in power at certain points, for sure.
So where we've left off in 0.2, the campaign is a much better experience, but definitely, I think for some people it would still kind of be not as pleasant as they want. We've obviously got some huge changes here. So the removal of Cruel, Less repetition obviously makes a big difference for how much of a slog the campaign maybe feels like versus it being entertaining and fresh. So there'll be a nice reset there. Another huge change is the addition of sprint. So now if you hold dodge roll, you'll start sprinting. And did get a chance to play test and mess around with this one. And they were working on it actively as I was playing it. The first day I played it was not that good. I gave them some feedback and they made a change in the second day, unrelated to my feedback. They've got another change that they just did, which is where like the sprint stays going until you stop moving or doing a skill. So I have an injury right now that makes my left arm really weak. So I was holding the spacebar to sprint the whole time, and I was like, "You guys really need a way to like make this so it sticks on when you just like and you can let go of spacebar." Yeah, not like a full toggle, but like a sticky sprint sort of thing, like a lot of FPS games have. And I saw the notes updated that they implemented that. So there's now
I saw that patch. I was like, "Hey, it worked."
Yeah, I was like, yes, they did it.
Yeah.
So that was a good little quality of life improvement there. I'm happy with. But they also made another change. They buffed dodge roll so that you can change direction while dodge rolling for longer throughout the course of the dodge roll, which means that like you can whip around like full 360 or do 180 turns and stuff while dodge rolling much more easily and like weave through packs and stuff. It's real nice. But so sprint's a huge addition, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it overall. But we have a clip. Nugi, can we go over to the clip? So I did get a chance to play some hands off. The audio is not so important for this one. This is just some footage I cobbled together of me just sprinting around on a warrior. A little bit of gameplay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh.
And kind of just the experience of like how it feels to weave through packs and things like that. And I think the big thing to note is that anytime you want to change directions or weave through packs, you can dodge roll and change direction and keep sprinting like very seamlessly. It also weaves into skill usage really well. There was a focus in the reveal of getting like heavy stunned when you get hit. A lot of them actually don't do that. Small hits will just do like a light stagger that you can recover from quite nicely.
And if you random fly taps you, that's nice.
Yeah, you don't actually get like fully knocked over from those things. You will get knocked over if you like use it poorly and keep running through a pack, but you can just transition into a dodge roll or go straight into a skill. And it felt so good on warrior. Like transitioning into like resonating shield or rolling slam. So good in the trials too.
Some kind of speedrunner? What's happening here? This looks like fast warrior gameplay. I thought warrior was
how good does it look, right? It's so good. I had so much fun on this warrior run. It's so zippy, right? And this is just 10% move speed boots, you know, nothing unusual. And I had no idea what I was doing with the builds. So I had a bit of a mishmash of skills and stuff, but just like the transition from sprinting into doing attacks and then back into sprinting again, I was actually able to use it in combat a lot more. Also, it's really fun to do like sprint into rolling slam on bosses and sprint into like skills and stuff. Like I was using in boss fights, so like a boss would be going to do a slam and I would dodge roll and then sprint a little bit to like get to the other side of them or something like that. The Reaper, like it happens in combat, but you know, there is that, they do have that ability to get knocked down and thing like, so it is something you consider, but after a bit of practice, it was feeling really good. Like, so, and you saw like at the start of that video, there was me running through like that really long zone, right? Like there's a lot of running in this zone and it's quite sparse at times, which you appreciate while sprinting. Being able to just kind of like, man, move through zones like that so much faster. It's like even without them reducing the size of some of these zones, it felt so much of an improvement.
This looks so freaking nice.
Like look at that. You're running past monsters. How did
Yeah.
Did you have it? Did you actually talk to Jonathan about this? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, because I did, because I was like, you were saying that you didn't really want, like, before, they were saying you didn't really want combat to be optional and stuff like that. And they were saying that the design of this lets them not compromise on their combat vision and stuff. So it's interesting. It is interesting. It does seem counter to kind of what they wanted, but I am big positive on it because as far as I see it, it's you engage in combat when you want, you know? Like, yeah, it'll let you get away from things. It'll let you avoid combat, but the combat you're avoiding is probably not really. It's just like monsters that, you know, you don't need to kill. They're just annoying things, or they're just like a random stray that you don't really want to be slowly walking along and killing, you know? But when you actually do engage with something, you stop, you know, you stop sprinting.
And you have to consider
just
as
makes
well.
the between moments more fluid.
I mean, I assume if there's too big of a pack and you try and sprint through it, you just get knocked down if you're too careless.
Yeah. So like there is counterplays like using certain skills or additional dodge rolls to deal with that sort of situation. But I showed that moment where like I kind of sprinted in between two packs and got stuck, but like it was something that you can recover if you realize quickly, or you can try and avoid. But yeah, so I'm curious, like, what are your guys' thoughts on sprinting? Do you think like it's a good idea? I saw someone in chat being like, it seems like a band-aid. Do you feel like it's actually like a good fundamental issue, or if is it just like a band-aid? What do you guys think about it?
It might be a band-aid, but I gotta be honest, I'm kind of I will take it for now. It's if it's something they're willing to give it, and it's like some level of compromise between the players wanting to be faster and GGG not wanting to give us outright like instantaneous movement skills to still be able to have that sort of mechanical interaction between you and the boss where you can't just port away from their attack. I would say it seems I'm pretty excited to play with it. Like right now, when I'm doing these leveling runs, my current gameplay is I'm grabbing shield charge. I'm doing this awkward thing where I'm constantly watching my cooldown and I'm pressing it, and my dude's weapon swapping off my focus. And I'm a wand character, and it feels weird, but it's the way I can force in just a little bit of speed to try to go through the campaign. And to me, that seems like this is a much more fluid, feels like I'm still a caster. I'm not just turning into this shield build in this awkward situation that's kind of annoying to keep watching the cooldown and manage. So I don't know. I'm excited. I think it'll be I'll enjoy it quite a bit, having a bit of speed when there's these dead zones, or just trying to be able to use it as an avoidance layer for some mechanics that are kind of harder to avoid. Because usually dodge rolls, like if you time it badly, it kind of makes you into a sitting duck, but the sprint would actually be like, okay, you're not a sitting duck. You actually get some speed boost from clicking the dodge roll.
So that's an interesting point, because like it reduces your reliance on things like using shield charge, leap slam, dodge roll, animation canceling stuff, which are like, I didn't feel like using shield charge as a travel skill. They removed the cooldown from shield charge, and yet I didn't use that as a travel skill. I rathered sprinting the whole time. I don't know which is going to end up being faster for like speedrunners and stuff. Like maybe it's still faster, or maybe it's a faster to use a combination of them, but it feels a lot better to sprint than it does to use shield charge. And like the design of those is such that there's kind of like an awkward or you're running into walls, or you're getting stuck, or things like that, which can happen with sprint a little bit because the controls are different to normal movement. But once you get more comfortable with it, I felt like it was way smoother than using like movement skills to travel around. I only wanted to use them in combat, right? Like if I use the shield charge, it was because I was going to engage with a pack, which is probably what they want. That to me makes it seem like a core game element rather than a band-aid.
I think it's good if it's a core element, honestly. I think if this becomes the... I think it's good if they have sprint being the top speed and everything else being the normal speed, and you don't really have these things that kind of exceed it too much. You can, I think it's a good bar to have. Anything we put in the game, as long as it doesn't exceed sprint, we're okay. And then we can have it play fast, but as long as we don't exceed sprint, we're fine. It's like you really don't want anything to be faster than sprint, I think. Because then you immediately like just back that yeah. And it's a considered way of playing, right? Like there's a risk involved around it. Like you make a decision as you're playing, and it does exactly what you need, I feel.
Yeah, I definitely got knocked down sometimes because like I screwed up.
Yeah.
I will mention that the controls are different, which I think will probably depend on your input type as to how much of a big deal that is. But so when you WASD around with that input type, you kind of A and D strafe, like you sidestep, right? Like you walk sideways. But when you're sprinting, it becomes steering. So like A and D turn you when you're using WSD, which it's different. Like you don't have you can't just kind of wiggle around on the spot. So your movement becomes like like a fast boat. So you get a little bit of, so that means you do consider where you sprint a bit more. Like there is some consideration to that, because if you need to take a 45-degree turn right away, you're not going to sprint that, but you will dodge roll that. The fact that you can weave the dodge roll and sprints together does make a big difference there, because you'll sprint up to the door, dodge roll 45 degrees, then keep sprinting. So take that as advice for learning to use the new sprint. Is the dodge roll to make tighter turns. It's way better. Yeah, it gives you tank controls. Yeah, it sounds bad, and it was definitely awkward that first hour. But once I realized that, like, and with the dodge roll change they made, once I realized that dodge roll was how you do tight turns, that felt instantly way better. I was like, okay, I get it now. It clicked. So that's my advice for the sprint, at least. So how do you feel like this makes a difference for the campaign? Like, are you happy, do you think, inside of the idea of sprint with like the size of zones and length of campaign potentially? Hard to say without Act 4 and interludes, I know, but from what we do have.
I mean, from the zones we do have, there's definitely zones where you're like, this is a zone which doesn't have a lot of monsters, but it's really long. Like, today I was doing Act 2, and Act 2, where you do the Valley of the Titans, they have this really long, like, pathway zones, which don't have that many mobs in them, and you're just traveling most of the time. I did the thing where you go the wrong direction, because I'm good at finding dead ends, and I found this sword that gave me an Artificer's Orb, which was cool, but then I had to go backtrack, and it would have been there's a lot of times when you run into those sorts of things where I didn't really have a checkpoint that was necessarily would have been an efficient backtrack, where the next checkpoint I had was all the way at the start of the zone, and it was actually a similar amount of backtracking no matter what. And I think zones like that, where even without the dead end, there's not a lot of sparse monsters, a little bit more of a subtle zone in terms of activity. Sprinting will feel just really nice and compressing the level of I'm here for a while, nothing's happening.
It's definitely a band-aid for that problem, though, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
that problem sprint is a band-aid for, because that needs to be solved more fundamentally by, I think they need to increase like the detection radius of exits and add more signaling for
Yeah,
that stuff, because it
I'd
is too
agree.
easy to miss exits still. They improved it, but yeah, and checkpoints helped, but there's probably some places where they need a few more of them.
They
Like
want you to pick up
just
light radius, Siggy. Weird. I'm
I
serious.
like the idea that light radius does something, but it needs, like, the base light radius needs to be high enough for that
Yeah.
or something. Do you guys have any other thoughts on kind of like the overall pacing, the slog? What do you see as still a problem outside of what we just mentioned?
For me, when I think slog, the biggest thing I think of is repetitiveness in endgame. So that would be like Hidden Grotto ends up
Right.
being 30% of the maps I ran for some reason, like that sort of thing. So I think they've done a little bit to that and adding more of these unique zones and
Yeah.
layouts, and maybe the patch they did with shrinking zones maybe helped that some. I don't know, because I didn't play that long into the 0.2 patch. But obviously, it's the other elephant in the room of like towers. That element is probably still a slog thing, and obviously GG already said, "Hey, this is something we're going to look at." So I don't know if that's necessarily that's something they're going to be going for next patch, anyways. But for me, that's end game repetitive. This is where I think a lot of the slog is outside of our characters are slow in campaign. Sprinting's addressing that, adding more spikes and power throughout guaranteed loot, buffing loot, all that stuff contributes. So we'll see. I'm excited to play this patch, thinking it'll be probably a fairly sizably, noticeably different experience, because a lot of those things add together.
I'll note that a surprising twist that affected like the feel of campaign pacing to me was the support gem system overhaul. So nice segue into the next topic of the support gem system overhaul. They changed it so that you can now use any support across any number of skills. You're not limited to just using one Fist of War or just one whatever martial tempo is called now. They also added tiers of supports, so you have a bit more granular support growth. Which may touch on the idea of like it being difficult to like level skills when you're stuck in the campaign, for example, because you might be able to find more support gem upgrades because you know you can move from your tier 1 to a tier 2 support and get a bit of extra power that way. They also added at end game lineage supports, which are skill supports that are limited to one ofs, and they have a bit more nuanced or powerful effects. So part of my experience here was where this addressed kind of like campaign slog a bit and combat pacing more specifically, was that instances of me having like multiple Fist of War, just as like one narrow example,
Yeah.
meant that I had more interesting skill like usage going on that felt faster. I wasn't waiting for like 8 seconds for my earthquake to come up again with Fist of War. I was doing my leap slam Fist of War. I was doing my rolling slam Fist of War. Those skills were bigger and more impactful. And you could have done those in the meantime before, but it felt like you were waiting. Now I didn't feel like I was waiting. I was moving on to the next skill that is built the way that I wanted it. So even though I was kind of like a supporter of the limitation, that aspect somewhat sold me. But I'm curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are on the support gem system overall, in particular starting with the limit to one support being removed.
I don't.
I
have
would
any
say
of-
I'm.
You go first.
You go.
Oh, you go.
All right,
Lance
I'll go
going
first. I was gonna say I originally was always gonna be on the board of I'll try it and see how it feels, and after trying it, I'm definitely fully on board that the one limit support did not feel great in terms of if you want us to feel like combos can feel good, or if you want us to feel like we can swap between two different skills, basically like, and it not feel like we're subtracting for our build's overall power, it just didn't work because they're so limited in terms of number of supports that actually work, and the number of supports you'd need in the game to make it so these two skills could be optimally supported and feel good. You just get to this ballooned number of supports, which just ends up being probably just game bloat in the end because the list is already huge, and even with the huge list of support gems we do have, there's only the few that actually work optimally, and then your second skill you're trying to support doesn't. It's going to miss something for it. So I think all in all, I'm just a big pro of adding the ability to have multi supports again, and then I'll see about if I'm gonna end up saying the same thing for lineage supports later on. But I guess since it's more of a min max, super targeted types of things, that it can work. But I don't know. I'm a little bit hesitant after this situation of having only one support if it's gonna feel the same way. Where okay, I'm playing an attack build that's elemental. I know the Rockiatus flow is a thing. That support that said basically monsters flip res. To me, that's an insane damage power spike. Is it going to end up with the same situation where, well, I want to have both of these skills have Rockiatus flow, but only one can have it. Therefore, we're back to where we were before, where just one of these can be my damage ability. And I kind of feel like that may be, even if they are niche, a lot of them, there's going to be situations where it forces you back into one skill having the thing, and then I don't know. I'm nervous about the lineage limit support in that regard.
I want to loop back to that, but first let's hear what Nugi. What's your kind of thoughts overall on the change?
No, I think I'm with Lance on the seeing how it goes. I totally got what they were aiming for and having uniqueness and like everything is different. But the one thing I always felt was I need 5 times more support gems all the time. I'm like,
yes.
But I think that's what you're running through as well with the campaign. Is because right now, even with how many they had, like imagine like, or let's just say 4 times as many, right? Let's say they have like, how many supports do they have now? Or did they have a couple hundred?
Well, I don't know now, dude, because they got like 3 tiers of a lot of supports.
But like, no, right now before the update. It's like a couple hundred, right? Or something? Let's just say they have 200. Okay?
I think it's more than that even, probably.
Okay, well, let's say they have 300. They probably need 1,000 for the current amount of skills. And then if they
probably, yeah.
And then you see how many archetypes that are not there yet. It's like now you need like so they probably needed 2,000 support gems to support the game eventually, and that's crazy. Because every archetype only can use, like Lance said, like you can only use so many. Right? There's only so many skills that supports a physical slam. Like a physical slam only has so many supports. So you would need like because not everyone can, like not all, if you want to have multiple damage ones, you need like, I don't know, you need like just 20 different damage supports because they are also different, right? You don't always want the one that slows you down or do all these things. So like there's just too many combinations that players want to engage with that the system can work in any like reasonable way with the amount of supports. So I think it's good that we have multiple, because I think what the old system actually did is it forced you into 1-button builds, like 1-button significant builds.
Yeah,
that was that's why you felt like you only had 1 button you had to wait before. Now you don't have to wait because all your skills have potential, because you can actually put enough into them, and especially early on, I think it matters. That's like the worst part. So it's good change.
I was definitely concerned with the number of change like the number of supports they needed total to be able to make that previous system work. I like the idea of it from the perspective of if there's only a certain amount of like just raw damage supports, you're going to put those on the skill that you want to be the damage skill, which kind of forces you to be a bit more creative about what skills you want to provide more utilitous effects. So let's say you've got 5 damage skills. You can only really make one of them a good damage skill. So which ones do you choose to be the ones that support that in interesting ways? And that like game build design thing is interesting to me. So I liked what they were going for with it. But yeah, I think it does seem to be a case where like the problems with that
I think
were getting a bit heavy.
I think the one place where they had a problem is that they didn't have enough cross support through skills through the system. So there's not enough where it's like it converts or interacts in a smart way between skills, right? Where it's like we have this whole thing that enables shock on all builds, and then you can. So like let's say that you know how armor break can be consumed, but maybe you make a whole suite of consumable debuffs. So when you consume debuff, it does thing.
Combo.
So you could do a shock into skill, or an armor break into skill, or an expose into skill, and that way you can have it more limited, but then you have multiple combinations that kind of lead to a combo. But they don't have that. Everything is tied around armor break into the same thing, and it's like all these other, like every archetype is very closed. And I think that's why it didn't work, because it was too closed. You didn't have the cross between the skills, which is what I thought they wanted, right? The fire into cold, the cold into the lightning into, all these like cross combinations, but it didn't really manifest. But that's but they're doing stuff with that, not just with support gems now. We're getting all the infusions, and that's looking really cool, and there's currencies, but yeah. I think what they show us to do is the right thing with the current system.
There's an interesting, like there's a pretty common complaint that like people feel like the forced combos between skills is too much, like it's too heavy-handed. And there are some build your own combo pieces where you can like get an armor break that you add somewhere or whatnot, but they were maybe a bit more niched down. So maybe that would be less of a complaint if those combos felt like they were being chosen yourself more than being pre-designed on the skills, but were rather done more through support gems. What were you thinking, Les?
I was gonna say that I wasn't necessarily thinking about that, but that is a very good point. Of like they did a lot of these like showcases where like, oh, okay, look, you can use this skill with this skill, and you're like, okay, that's cool. But then when you go and actually play the game, you're like, oh, it's just that skill with that skill, and it is actually that hyper limited. And I think it's maybe that'll be a change we'll have to look into in the future, and making it so those skills that cause this effect are more generically usable across other things. Some cross contamination or cross I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that idea of not such confined limitations where this effect, this debuff only overlaps with like 2 or 3 skills, but have it more widely usable.
I think so the design of the tier 3 supports and the lineage supports is that they have a bit more niched and powerful effects, usually that you might have to make a decision compared to the tier 1 and 2s. And I think that probably for me saves this change from the perspective of being concerned about losing what we had with the current restrictions. So maybe we gain that back with the lineage supports. We'll have to see how that plays out. Like Lance is a bit unsure about it. We'll see. Something I have identified though that I don't like about what they're doing with the support gem system is I don't like the tier 2 supports. Most of the time they're like, if it's like an added fire gem, it'll be like 20% for tier 1 and it's 25% for tier 2, and it's like that is I don't know, man. Like to me that feels like bloat. That feels like little tiny
Is it just like if you had a
not
level 1 added
changes.
fire becomes a level 10 added fire type of thing where it's just slightly better?
Yeah, kind of. Yes. So I like tier 1 to tier 3 because tier 1 is like 20% out of fire, and tier 3 is like your ignites are faster. I'm completely making this example up, by the way. This is not how this gem works. Your ignites are faster. Maybe there's like a drawback. It has a conversion aspect on top of it, and it's got out of fire. So like it does something different. So you're like, okay, I just want the one that does the simple thing, or I want the more interesting thing. And then you got your lineage supports, which are even more unique. But the tier 2s are just like a slight granular increase on the first one, generally speaking, from everything I saw.
Where it's just they're trying to power check you, I guess, at Act 1 versus Act 2 or something.
Yeah. And I don't
Yeah,
really
that's
like,
a little weird.
you know, Martial Tempo 1, Martial Tempo 2, kind of.
Did it feel good though? Like when you were playing and you
Well, no,
got a level up.
that's the problem. Like, yeah, I like things that you can feel, right? Like I like ascendancy nodes you can feel, and I like gems you can feel. And I don't think you feel a tier 1 to a tier 2 gem change.
You weren't even looking forward to the extra power that would come with T2.
Yeah, like mathematically, you know that oh yeah, I'm doing a bit more damage now, but that's such a small change, and it's not like any sort of mechanical change either. So to me, that feels like a nothing. I feel like if they wanted to give that, I don't know if that's the way to do it. I don't know if that, like, the point is obviously to give you more opportunities to have like power increases, to have like a moment where you get you get more upgrades throughout the campaign, basically. And I don't know if like the tier 2 support as a bridge there is the fun way to do that.
Should gems
Maybe
just
if they were
have
a bit more
levels again?
interesting. Pardon?
Should levels or should
gems
gems
just
just
have
have levels again?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, what's the argument like for not or for having like leveling up support gems?
The
I don't know.
argument for not having it. I mean, you can still have the tiers matter for like the entry level needs to be met before you can, you know, get a certain type and then levels up. And maybe you need to max level to unlock the ability to convert it into a T3. I mean, there's many
I
ways.
like the idea of like decisions, but
yeah,
the I think like support gem leveling also doesn't feel like anything, right? Like you don't notice a support gem leveling. Whenever you have like leveled a support gem, you're like, oh yes, power spike. Not really. It's so granular. It's such a tiny thing.
I notice it when I de-level it to get quality on it.
Yeah, from 20 to 1.
When you go from 20 to 1,
yeah,
that's
maybe,
I mean that's a big
That's
difference.
it's a big jump, man.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So yeah, I don't know if it's just the case of like evening non-gem areas having other options for like power growth, like more runes and things like that. Maybe rather than having tier 2 supports and just doing the like what they're doing with the tier 3s, where like there's a you know, later in the campaign or towards end game, there's another version of the gem that's a bit different. You know, lesser and greater rather than the more granular approach they've gone for. So yeah, I'm not a fan of the granular support gem thing, but. And I was also kind of like, ugh, when they show the currency where it's like Exalt 1, Exalt 2, Exalt 3. I'm like,
I like those.
You weren't necessarily
like
a fan of the new exalts or the crafting currencies?
I like what they're doing with the modifiers, like how it's like tapering off the bottom end, but I feel like that should just happen automatically. I don't even know if that should be part of a granular currency system like that. To me, that's like messy. I don't know. It feels lame and gamey. I don't know. But that's maybe a bit off topic. We can talk about crafting a bit later, maybe. Okay. Any other thoughts on support gem system at all from you guys before we move on?
I don't have any.
No, I think that's good.
No, all right. So on that note, then, shall we talk about defenses? So we're talking armor, evasion, blue life, block, the new mechanics, the changes to them. GGG saying like evasion's weaker than armor. People took issue with that comment. There's you got to build some defense. Yeah. What do you guys feel about? Should we break it down into armor first, maybe? How do you guys feel about the changes to armor? So it seems to be predominantly that armor builds are gaining access to armor applying to elemental damage hits as a modifier on gear and on the passive tree. And also armor-based builds are gaining a guard mechanic. It's not exclusively an armor-based thing, but it's tied to like the sorts of skills and things that you would have. So like the warriors are going to have guard. And guard seems to be like a flat damage mitigation effect, typically tied to shield skills, where you like hit an enemy or do a war cry and you get like 30, 60, 120 damage reduction for X amount of time, that sort of thing. How do you guys feel about armor in general? And is this
I'll start. This is gonna be a bit confrontational because we talked a little bit beforehand, but when I think about the changes to armor, the fact that elemental armor is pre-resistance calculation, and the armor formula in PoE2 is, I believe, weaker than it is in PoE1.
Yes.
with the sources you can get of armor, I do not have a lot of faith in this being that good. I think there's going to be a lot of scenarios where the heavy elemental hits are going to eat you alive, and they, from what they showed us in the passive in the patch notes, is a lot of the max res seems to be getting taken out. They removed items that had max res. The notable one of the notables they showcased with the thing has no max res where it previously had max res, and max res is really good at big hits. Armor applied to elemental damage is not going to be. I think it's going to be rough for survivability if you're pure life, counting on that to help you mitigate elemental damage over what you had previously, which was max res scaling.
Not that many characters had max res scaling, really. It was just Kitava. Because like the item gone is the max 5, which did all 5, like all 3. So the max res scaling, I don't think it was that. I mean, and then you have Gimling, I guess. Those are like your 2 max res scalers. You can get some decent one, but I don't. It was mainly Kitava that really like brought that forward, I think.
Kitava was also 7 out of 10 warriors, right? Because of the max res.
But then you're like, okay, is that the way we want to balance? Just to force everyone into Kitava? That seems terrible. I mean, that can't be the way. It can't be the way that like everyone has to play the same way as Kitava. That doesn't seem right. I think one thing on armor here. So you mentioned, and I think people get really caught up in this, and I think it's. I think you kind of like. I think you come from it completely from the wrong place. You get caught up in how PoE 1 works. Okay, where like the whole argument is like it needs to be before or after armor. That whole thing doesn't matter. Before or after res doesn't matter, because what that does is just it just changes the effectiveness of either res or armor in conjunction with each other. Now the thing is like, if armor is just good enough, you don't need res. The way to make armor good here is not to tie it. There is one thing about the res that does make sense here, which is this. There is like but they can fix it. So armor right now, because elemental hits start well, like the result of what damage you take in endgame is after res. If you take 1,000 fizz or you take 1,000 Ellie, well, the res came first. So if you took 1,000 Ellie, you took 4,000 damage. That makes that armor, that makes that armor thing really difficult to solve for elemental damage. So that means that what they really need to bump is they need to bump the apply elemental damage to armor at higher values, so that you actually make it an alternative to max res and not contingent on it.
So
it's
I'm
not about
reason,
whether or not it's tied to it. It's whether or not the values make sense.
The whole reason I referenced the pre-calc is because what we can see of acquirable armor applies to Ellie is we can see numbers that you add up the gloves, the boots, the helmet, the body armor, the passive tree nodes. You end up with a situation where you have roughly close to 100% of your armor applies to Ellie. And that's a lot of investment in affixes. The reason I referenced the pre-calc res thing, because if the most you can get of that stat is around 100%, you're ending up with a situation where you're not getting that much effective DR for the elemental damage, because elemental damage is based on your 75 res. That's why elemental max hits elemental damage max hits are just completely different than fizz max hits. I agree with you. If they made the stat so you could get 500% of it, I just don't think the numbers are there where it's going to be a meaningful amount. I think it's going to be rough survivability wise.
I think
I'm referencing the applies because you get about 1-to-1 effectiveness versus fizz versus Ellie, and Ellie's 4x higher.
Well, there's also the soul cores, and there's a lot of things, and you can like kind of specialize in one. You could probably get to, I think you could probably get to like 201 if that's what, like if you identify certain things.
Is that good though? If you have the other 2 elements just don't have anywhere close to as much mitigation, you just die to the other ones, right?
No, but this is how you split. Like we just got the new belt as well, for instance, right? If you can have like a swap depending if you're boss fighting. I'm not saying this is going to be applicable all the time, everywhere, all at once. Okay, but this idea that a build either mitigates everything at like the highest tier and can withstand a one shot. I don't know if that's good for the game. If that everything is solved through one. It's the why ES is problematic, but we'll come to that. But I think one thing you forget though is that by stacking this armor to solve the Ellie, once you've done this, you're actually also stacking armor, which at high enough levels actually does become good, and you still have res, so you don't need as much to get, you know, to move it to where you need to go. Now I think the values are slightly too low for it to be applicable in enough places. I think there's a couple places where you can actually use this. So the double defend on Tactician, you know, that starts weighing towards where we need to be. That's interesting. I've been tinkering with the character, and it's not an ES. It's not as strong as ES. I think I can get like around 60,000 before the double defend, so you get like 120 against Ellie. And we need to remember that the numbers in PoE 2 are lower than in PoE 1. The highest max hit you get before you start increasing them with map modifiers is 12,000. Around 12,000. It's from Doyani's Laser Blast or whatever. So that's like the number you need to look at. Once you get to 60k, like no 50k, I think it's around 50k. And I don't know, around that, you get a 50% damage reduction.
You're referencing something I died to on hardcore, saying, "I wonder if I could take this." Freaking
oh, really?
speaking of trauma.
Okay, so but that specifically gets mitigated by 50% at that level of armor with double armor, right? So that's about what you would hope for, because 50% plus the 75 max res, you get to 87, which is fairly equivalent to very high level max res characters. So you kind of get, but it's too niche still, and there needs to be better ways of, you know, in different ways to bump it to get to that point. And I think the second issue with armor is that the lower levels of armor is too bad, right? It's like it's either you get very high, or the game does not feel
don't
good.
Even do it.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's what armor really suffers from.
Both energy shield and evasion, you get a little bit of it paired with your build. It works.
Yes.
Armor, not
Yes.
at all. It does nothing. If you don't have a lot of it, it does nothing.
Okay. So maybe something at the lower end, like a bolster at the lower end of things, might be helpful. This is interesting then, because it sounds like from your perspective, Lance, you're very, and this is probably due to the fact that these are the things you've died to on your ridiculous unkillable characters, but you're very much thinking about like that gigantic hit of elemental damage and how this amount of armor applies to elemental damage just does nothing to it. So something that they revealed was map modifiers, where instead of like Path of Exile 1, where it's 100% added cold on monsters in maps, it's like 25%, 20%. Do you think that in that context, like running through a map with a somewhat regular amount of armor with some 50% or something of elemental damage conversion from your armor or whatever, is good in that context where like random monsters are getting 25% added elemental damage? Is that basically like giving you a free pass on those modifiers, because that's a much smaller amount of added damage, right?
Is it giving you a free pass on those modifiers? It's just generic gain damage in PoE 2, so it works on elemental mods, right? So the weird difference between this and PoE 1 is it's always fizz gain, which the fizz gain is 100% on fizz, and the fizz hits are all balanced around the being much lower. So the important distinction there is you have situations where you have a pure elemental monster that has its elemental damage, right? That gain mod is applying to that elemental damage, not just like the fizz hits. So it has that higher balance number, right? So you have 100% gain fizz. You end up taking 20% more damage from that if you have 75 res and you don't have any fizz mitigation, right? It's going to end up feeling, I think, a similar shakedown where you gain 20% of their elemental damage. It's going to do 20% more damage because it's that. I'm not sure if I'm saying this right or I'm making sense.
So
In the case of armor versus no armor, my feeling is still the situation where you need to get rid of the peaks that will kill you. You need to be above those peaks. And I think those things will still be occurring. And this is not because I want armor to be bad. I want armor to be better than it is, because I don't think it's necessarily good enough to deal with those peaks you're going to run into, and they're going to be like those are where you're going to die. When you get the high hits, that's where you're going to die, and it's where you're going to die whether you're armor character or not. And the not armor character, I think, can get above those peaks, and then they're just not dying, like ES builds, or if deflection's easy to acquire, that might also get the DR more efficiently. We'll see.
So like GGG's perspective is, every time I've asked them about it, is that they feel internally that armor is quite good. And this is a case where there does seem to be a pretty big disparity between their opinion on this and a lot of players' opinions on this. What do you think? Why do you think that is their perspective? Like to do the actually though to yourself?
Actually, though, why would I think this is their perspective? I would
throw them
say
some benefit of the doubt on this one.
I would give them the benefit of the doubt where campaign armor can feel pretty good in campaign. So, for example, Jonathan does a lot of campaign runs.
Sure.
It probably feels pretty good in that context because the hit scaling has not really gotten that high in terms of the peaks you start running into in T16s with layered damage modifiers. So in that perspective, I feel like it maybe is well balanced in the context of campaign. Where I think it starts to fall significantly behind is when you start getting the ability to have fairly good gear, is where energy shield specifically, and then also evasion to some extent, take much farther off. Is I get a good armor chest piece that gets a few extra 1,000 armor. I get a good ES chest piece that doubles my raw HP number, which is a much more significant change that occurs. But that requires trade league. That requires, if you're doing SSF, that would require a ton of play time. So it's not something you're going to encounter in, I think, like smaller play test situations, which I think that's like a large difference there. If you're playing in a whole trade economy, you have the ability to buy that good item, and that's where the comparison starts to be so stark, I think.
It's often a factor of context, like armor versus energy shield and stuff like that. And they certainly have had the perspective that like it seems to be that it's not necessarily they didn't want to buff armor fundamentally, but rather bring things like energy shield down to a bit more of a reasonable level, maybe. I think probably a part of it is difference in expectations too. Like maybe players expect to be able to build armor to a point where they can tank everything, versus GGG think, well, you should never be able to tank that. Like this is something that we intend you dodge roll.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
So that might well be part of it. Then. So how do you guys feel like? Go ahead, Nugi.
So on the itemization of armor, I think this is one of the places where I think they don't fully. I don't think they've fully gauged how much pressure they've just put on armor builds right now. I think this is. So I would actually never start an armor character on SSF. I think that's crazy. The affix pressure right now on an armor build is insane, because you need the suffix now and everything, and you can't go chaos inoculation. You need chaos rest, which is the biggest enemy of armor builds, because they have nothing against it. They don't have a low like high enough HP pool. Now they have to build 4 affixes, and they probably want it high level, plus they need chaos rest. There's so many things that you need to hit. I'm gonna try it anyways, but it's such high gear pressure, and essentially what you end up with is something, once you've met the entire, like once you've actually met the conditions for all this gear, you're half an initial character that had to meet half of it. That's like the crazy part, because like a lot of the suffixes, there's not a big suffix pressure on ES gear. Like all the suffix stuff that they get is just icing on the cake. But for armor builds, it's mandatory. Plus, you need all the prefixes.
With the pressure on gear, it kind of raises the question of like, is it really bad to just get like one of these affixes? Like, because of the way armor works, does that mean if you only get one affix,
it doesn't work?
You only get 20%, then it's like you have to go all or nothing on this.
It's all or nothing.
Which means
I can't see it any other way.
So then that does mean that like the gear pressure is that much more of a big deal too, because
and the passive skill pressure, when you look at the values,
it is a high investment thing. Like it seems like it's a nice addition to add to armor, but it does seem like the the requirement to all or nothing it is a bit high, given that they've tuned it clearly around it being like an investment. But then the fact that it's all or nothing seems to work against that.
I can try and like compare it to PoE 1. In PoE 1, 40,000 armor is pretty trivial to get. Right, for like that 20 to 40k on a lot of builds that want to have some armor investment is pretty trivial. And you often pair it with the baseline of endurance charges. So you have a good baseline. It basically solves all the small hits. It does enough for the big hits. So you kind of solve there. But in PoE you can go to like millions of armor, and then you leverage it that way, and then it becomes like there's a whole other like level. In PoE 2, it's like the difference between a 5,000 armor character and a 60. Like the 60 can work against. You know, the thing is like if you actually get there, it's very hard. That's like very, very hard. But like that 5 to 10k, it barely does anything compared to all the other options you have. So it's like those like low to mid tier investments, and there's just not enough stuff to like make that investment worth it. And I think that's a big problem. Like we don't have the molten shell. Like the thing is like in PoE 1, like the molten shell is really, really good. Because like once you hit that 40k, you get a huge molten shell. It makes those low HP characters. It's basically what Jade does for Warbringer. But it's like that's what armor needs. HP. Yeah, I'm not sure if guard is going to be enough. It's like there really needs some way of like I am like becoming molten lava and I'm becoming man of steel for a moment. That kind of needs to be there. Where like the scavenge plating is kind of trying, but it's.
Scavenge plating is just like scaling your armor. It's something to leverage your armor to make it do more.
Yes.
It's surprising to me that guard. So I think the guard mechanic's a nice little addition, but it is surprising to me that guard isn't
scale
tied
with
to
armor?
your armor.
I don't get it.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that it doesn't scale that way, but rather with strength. It seems to be how it scales. Like the more strength you have, the more guard you get. Or like power of war cries and things like that. So it seems a little strange that one's not tied to armor.
That's funny you mentioned that it scales with strength, and I'm just thinking to myself, wait, that means the strength stack ES stacker can also just get the extra guard as well, but then they started a baseline way higher ES or way higher raw to begin with.
I hope they didn't make another suppression with guard, because I was looking at deflect and being like, oh phew, it looks like they're avoiding the suppression issue where everyone has to get suppression and then you have to pay the suppression tax. By tying it to evasion. It does hopefully guard isn't like a new suppression where it's like, well, everyone should really be trying to get guard because it's it works on ES builds and whatnot. Guard only works with HP, or is that a suggestion maybe from chat? I don't know that's how it works.
I think if it's tied to a support or a skill where you have to actively play to do it, that's gonna limit the level of it feeling like it's a universal thing you just stick in.
Yeah,
like
that's true. Suggestion that was okay. Yeah. Yes. It is. The ones I saw were like a support gem on hitting enemies with a shield skill, and the other one was using the war cry. That's tied to shield skill. So it also seems to be kind of linked to shields more so than anything else. So we'll see how that one plays out, I guess. But moving along, evasion had the deflect mechanic added, which is tied to evasion in some way that we don't know yet. It's not clear. They haven't really shown exactly how that works. So I don't know how you get it exactly. Just that it's tied to evasion, which in theory means that deflect won't have the same issue that suppression has, where like every build tries to get it. But it's the same idea where like when you deflect something, you take 40% less damage, and you can scale that value somewhat. So that is something that can round out the weaknesses of evasion in terms of like some hits can't be evaded, but they can be deflected. So slams, the random statue slammers and things like that bonk you when you're playing an evasion character, you may now be able to deflect those. Sounds like it scales based on how much evasion you have, maybe? Or is it just tied to evasion gear? Don't know. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on it? It's hard to evaluate, right?
Based on the way they've talked about it, I think it's like some sort of proportional scaling depending on how much passive it, let's say your evasion rating naturally gives you 20% of itself as deflection, and then you can grab nodes. Like I think they showcased some nodes that were like you get 10% of evasion rating as deflection. I don't remember the wording, but I think it was something along those lines. My feeling about this is because they don't want it to end up being suppression. They have this interlinked, like locked in mechanic where they're tied together, is also going to result in it being hard to cap. I think there's going to be a scenario where to get that 100% deflection cap, which is what you need for it to be reliable mitigation, I think it's going to be one of those things where only the giga evasion stacker, like Queen of the Forest style builds, are going to be hitting it. And therefore, it's going to be somewhat of one of those things where it feels more like a glancing blows than it does a suppression, where it gives you some consistent DR, but also not consistent because there's going to be times when you don't get the deflection and your character just dies where it would have mitigated half the damage.
It's weird. So apparently some stuff has been revealed. Chat saying that like it's a percentage of your evasion rating is gained as a deflection rating system, which to me suggests that you would never be able to cap it. But apparently other people are saying that it suggested that you can cap it with investment. So maybe
they did say you can get the 100%, but they didn't say how much takes to get there.
Interesting. Okay. They said you can get to 100. Yeah. So how hard is that? Is the question from Lance?
There was, if you looked at the footage, the character who is level 82, so it's assuming some level of map, like some, I don't exactly know, like if it's actually an 80 map at that point, like it assumes like an average or some assumed accuracy value at that point, from the monster, and then it had the guy has 5,000 evasion rating, 2,500 deflection rating, and is at 39% deflection chance, which is fairly high for 2,500 deflection rating. That's pretty trivial to get there. So I don't know if it's gonna be. Maybe it depends on like how it scales. You get to like pretty high chances to evade fairly quickly. The interesting part here, I think, is how does it tie into evasion, or does it tie into evasion at all? Is it just a percentage that's just always there, or is it some
of the gear or something? Apparently.
Let's say you need. Let's say that they're like let's say deflection rating scales slowly, right? Let's say every 1,000 gives you 5% or something. But
well, rather than speculating, I'll cut us off here on the evasion topic because it seems like Dreamcore just released a video that's supposed to be quite good just before this podcast that we haven't seen yet. So we're missing some context here, but apparently there's some pretty good analysis there suggesting things like above 80% will be really hard to get, which is kind of in support of Lance's theory that
why is what I'm just about to say not?
Cut him off, Ziggy.
Look, I feel I worry that we're going down a hypothetical rabbit hole here where
I just wanted to give an example of how this could work. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on. I'll just so
give us your actually though.
So imagine it's their like they work together. So if you have 80% actual chance to evade, you just need 20% deflect chance if it has entropy. So like for every time you don't, like for every time they miss, or like they hit you, you just need to have that proportional amount of deflection ready. So you just need, so that way it could be tied to evasion. So you always need to have high evasion before. That could be a way. Or it's just some rating that's always there. Because then the interesting thing though is that does it work with cannot evade?
It seems like unevadable hits will be able to be deflected, so it seems likely that would be the case.
But then it's not tied to actual.
Well, I think like it's just based on the same base thing, right? Is the idea that like your evasion gear is building you deflect, but they're not the same mechanic at all. Otherwise, they're linked together inextricably by design to avoid a suppression issue.
You get a proportional.
Everybody has to get it.
A proportional deflect rating, but deflect has its own formula based on the number of deflect you get based on your evasion number.
Yeah, as to whether it has like a
that's what I'm hoping
system for RNG or whatnot.
Because then my armor can deflect.
Yeah, there might be some more info revealed, and I recommend checking out the Dreamcore video then, because often Dreamcore's analysis on these things are pretty good. So might be good to check that out rather than I feel like we're missing some info and context. So rather than going further on that, let's talk about Blue Life. Yeah, but instead of doing made-up math, let's talk about Blue Life. So it doesn't seem like they've overly nerfed ES here. There's a few bits of reductions of energy shield scaling here and there from what I saw. a big part of the discussion I had with them during the Q&A and outside of it was the idea of energy shield. From my perspective, a big part of the problem is recovery, and that seems to be their opinion too. So recharge, here's some quotes from them. Recharge is intended to be the primary method for energy shield recovery. Some non-recharge recovery methods for energy shield have been reduced. I don't know if the patch notes reflect that, but that's what they said during the Q&A. It's not
Say
always
that
the case
again?
that these things are done right away.
Other forms that aren't
Some,
recharge.
yeah, non-recharge have been reduced, while more ways to enhance recharge have been added. And the desire is to see chunky energy shield pools that require players to actively manage recharge. I thought that was interesting because they want to see people with big fat energy shield pools, but where like it takes a bit of effort to get it all back after it's gone.
Why does it
And
need to be
that's where I want
20,000?
energy shield to be. I feel like that will make it actually feel like something unique.
Yes.
But where do you guys feel like energy shield is at, or where do you want it to be?
I mean, I'll
You go first.
oh yeah. I think it's so far removed from what's reasonable that is like I don't know. It's just it's so over the top. Like they can cut every ES number on the tree in half, and it's still the best.
Okay. Do you think it's a volume or a recovery issue, or
Volume.
both? You actually think more just about the amount of energy shield you
The
can get,
amount is way too high.
it's
It's
about
way
like the
too
fact you
high.
can
It's
you can
way too
take those
high.
one shots with it. What?
I'm
Yes.
gonna chime in here because
Mhm.
I agree completely. Way too high. I'm obviously somebody who's played multiple ES builds, and the reason I did that is because I think it's just way stronger. But not only that, they reference nerfing the other sources of recovery, non recharge sources.
Mhm.
And the thing that I think is the irony of this is I honestly think recharge was the best way to sustain energy shield before them doing nerfs. The recharge nodes are actually quite efficient. You can get your recharge timer where it's like if you don't get hit for 1 second, which is actually it's a really short amount of time, your recharge just goes way back to full. And the other thing is convalescence is a Val discipline on cooldown where you effectively, I know I'm about to take damage here, press this button, and I'm immortal for the next 5 seconds because this recharge doesn't stop, takes me all the way to full. It's you know when you're about to take some damage where you're getting surrounded and you have this panic button that will give you more healing than basically every other source in the game. And it's just a I don't know, it's a 20-second cooldown or something. It has a decent duration, but for the most part, there's not many scenarios where you're like, this is where I'm taking damage. I need this now. And it feels like it's very consistently there. So if they buff the recharge, I think that's just gonna result of the ES just being better than it was last league. Obviously, they did a small nerf to the runes themselves that makes the baseline ES a little bit lower, but in contrast, they also made it so you can get 30 quality, which is a counter buff to that, and they added extra
Yeah.
socket, which is a counter buff to that. So
And the like sanctified,
yeah,
or what's it
divine the
called
rolls
as well?
higher. I think
Yeah,
there's going to be
yeah.
chess pieces that have, unironically, with those changes, 1500 ES. Whereas right now the current top end is
Alright.
like 1200.
Nice.
But that'll be
Yeah.
obviously super expensive to do. You hit a core lock, you need a triple T1 ES, you need a lot of these various things to do that.
So we'll do an overall perspective at the end, but first let's talk about block a little bit as well. So they changed block to be nearly everything is blockable now. They reduced the block cap, which has gotten a lot of the attention because that's the thing people can see more. But the amount of like things that you can block now has gone up massively because so many things were unblockable before. It seems like proportionally you're blocking more hits now than you were before, even if you're just doing auto blocking. But obviously the huge thing is active block now is like completely reliable. Like you know that you're active blocking everything. I think a change that went with that as well was that they might have reduced the amount of stun buildup from small hits while active blocking, which is a big deal because that means you're kind of like not getting knocked out of that as quickly by blocking like a bunch of small stuff, which is a big problem. Active block is pretty useless against if there was like a barrage of hits coming your way. And no one's really using active block while mapping, right? But things like resonating shield slap are active blocking as well. So that sort of stuff is very strong too. And tangentially, well, like related to this, a buff to block also seems to be the instantaneous weapon swaps because there's not much reason to not have a shield on your weapon swap when it is instant to pull it out and block something. There's no downtime in that. Instant is such a big deal there. So I'm curious what you guys' thoughts on the block changes overall. Lance, do you have any feelings on the state of block after this?
My feelings on state of block after this, I did use block in I believe like my Archmage build, and I maybe had it as one of the variations of the setups I did for my Lich. Is I think largely what I used block for was shotgun mitigation. What I'm talking about is like you have a bunch of monsters swarm you. That's when I wanted that. That's what I wanted that layer of defense for. And the thing is that the shotgun mitigation was for hits that were all previously blockable, and now it's just 50% instead of 75 at your top end, which is just it's just worse for that. Where it becomes more useful is that, oh, I randomly don't die to the thing I should die to. You're rolling the dice. I think overall my thoughts are I don't feel great about block with this change because most of the things I was using block for was it's just it's you're getting hit by twice as many things, 50 versus 75. And they changed the block rolls on shields, for example. So like the investment it would take for you to get to 75 block is probably not going to feel all that different to the investment it's going to take for you to get to 50 because those innate block rolls that were tied to your shield is it's basically you're starting from a base of having a 30 block shield versus a 40 block shield. And what does it take to get 30 to 50? It takes, like 70% increased block chance. You put 70% increased block chance on a 40 block shield and you're at like 70. So I think overall I think it's kind of rough for
It sounds
block in
like
general.
a big part of the perspective there is like the nature of what things you auto block. That's interesting. Nugi,
Yeah.
did you have any other thoughts?
I mean, it's a pretty big win for just shield builds and like things that actually specialize in it, and I think that's good. It's also a win for evasion because it's just like it becomes the premier way of avoiding things versus because like there was like this thing where it's like you either go evasion or block. So I think a lot of builds will suffer. I know a lot of people think that it's gonna be an overall win because but there's so many things that you can now block. Because it's like, oh, what about all those grind things? But usually what people will do, they'll just dodge them. And then the things that actually kill you, all the strikes and the stray projectiles. That's usually what you take the most of damage from. Once you like it. But it's going to make the experience for those who want to be into the fray and standing on things better. If you're the kind of player who is like, I am standing on these explosions a lot of the time, it'll feel better. That style of play will be better because you're just soaking that. That's okay. I think I like that active block is good. That like the sprint, the active block, these kind of elements to the game, I think are very nice. They layer the game in a way that makes it more enjoyable for me to play at least. So I'm looking forward to that.
So I'll say I don't really know where it falls from like Lance's comments have me wondering like how it'll feel to end game for that sort of thing. So I don't really know or have an opinion on that one. But from my hands on with the acts 1 through 3 playing on Warrior, I will say block felt so ridiculous, like unhinged. It was insanely good. So this clip wasn't intended for this, but I do have a clip you can bring up, Nugi. And this was the classic thing of doing a warrior in Trial of Sekhmet, right? Where you got your honor system and warriors struggling with that, getting attritioned. We can do a 3, 2, 1 play if you're ready. And I basically did not get hit ever in Trial of Sekhmet. I think I took one hit at one point from like a trap or something. But here's me fighting this guy, just like relentlessly fighting Rattlecage, standing on top of him, just eating every single slam and not taking any damage. And this was my experience for the most part playing Warrior. Like, it was... the power fantasy of Warrior was definitely greatly improved by this block change. So I'll say, from the perspective of playing in campaign, using a shield and blocking, and that I didn't even active block once in that. That was just the combination of using things like the various shield skills and resonating strike and stuff. When
Resonating shield is active block, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's an active block. So it blocks 100. Resonating shield blocks 100% of stuff, even big slams. And basically,
I definitely don't disagree with
the
active block getting better. Active block is got a huge buff from this. I'm coming from the perspective of if you want to add this as a defensive layer and you're not a block-based character, you got kind of wrecked. That's mostly the context of what I was saying in terms of you're not playing something like Resonating Shield, you're not doing active block, but you're using it just as a defensive option. But yeah, no, the active block is definitely going to feel a lot better if that's the way you're building your character for sure.
And like tying that into the weapon swap, like you can like in that clip, I have like Bone Shatter on the two-hander, and I have like all of the like bigger, chunkier skills on the two-hander, and it's just instant swapping between that and the shield. Like, and I had time to like, without even really like thinking about it, we're trying particularly hard, just press my, I had bound to left click to pull out Resonating Shield whenever he looked like he was going to do something to me. I was at all worried about taking damage. It was just like insanely good, and there was many such cases throughout my campaign like this where it's just like, oh, the only reason I'm losing any life at all is because I have that blood magic node. So I definitely, from the perspective of the campaign alone, I can't speak to the end game, but the campaign there was feeling pretty good on the block change. So I am curious though, what's the overall perspective of defenses, kind of like looking at things zoomed out a little bit altogether? So it seems like the intent was to like add some buffs to armor and evasion, somewhat indirectly. And it sounds like the desire is to reduce energy shield, but do you think either of those things have really happened all that much?
Well, okay, okay. So the reduction of energy shield, no. But like energy shield is as overpowered as it was last time. And
he's winning, baby.
I don't know. I feel like they just managed to hit or to miss every single thing that made energy shield overpowered this time around.
It almost feels like they haven't started on the energy shield changes. But
yeah, I mean, I hope
focused
so.
on the armor evasion side of things.
I hope so.
I think what's happened so far is Grim Feast was our sacrificial decoy we sent out in point 1 to point 2. And then point 2, they were too distracted with trying to give some changes to armor and evasion to have time to deal with ES.
It seems like maybe block from some perspectives will be a big win, and deflect will probably be a pretty big thing. And there's a bit of a question mark around guard, but that might be a bit niche but strong when it is available. But outside of that, maybe not too much has changed for armor and evasion comparatively to energy shield. Outside of those things, except maybe like evasion,
they're both
deflect,
getting closer.
block, feeling okay. So
both armor and evasion
like
is getting closer to energy shield with these changes.
Okay,
like, they're just getting closer. I think armor is not far. Like there's not many tweaks that need to do before armor actually starts feeling really good. I think the armor calculation. So they brought the so it's basically how much damage you need to, or how much armor you need to do to block like 90%. So it was you needed, I think, like 120 times or something times the damage. Now it's down to 90. They need to bring that number. If they lower that like a few notches more and give some kind of form of leveraging armor into more active mitigation, we're actually very close for armor feeling really good if energy shield comes down.
There was a comment in chat that was like, we need more layered defenses, and I was feeling like that actually feels like what has happened here, is that's something they have done here, is like given us some more layered defenses, which that's a good step. I do think, like,
I think
guard, deflect, block being easier to get at like lower investment amounts.
I was going to say, in terms of the layered defenses thing, they have done things that are tied to evasion, armor, or energy shield. They didn't really do, but aside from those core main defenses, I would appreciate even defensive layers outside of those core archetypes, like either like reservation options. Like a lot of the reservation options right now are mostly purely offensive type of things, like having the ability to do like,
good point.
I'm just gonna use P1 examples because that's what we have. Determination, Flesh and Stone, Tempest Shield, Arctic Armor. These sort of like, some of those are tied to evasion or armor, but also you have things like Flesh and Stone, which are separate, their own entity of an option or an avenue to invest into damage reduction from your reservations outside of just, I feel like most reservations are just, they're offensive or utility right now. Stuff like that would be nice, I think.
I think a piece of the picture we're maybe missing here as well is that, and I'm hoping this is the case, that some of the support gems and the changes to the support gem system, along with instant weapon swap, also kind of give us more defensive tools. Like I said, it's easy to swap to a shield now, so that's another defensive layer that you can have on a build that actually feels reasonable. Like swapping to a shield before probably didn't really feel reasonable. as like a defensive layer, but now it is. You can tie it to certain skills where you want to be more defensive, where it makes sense to do so. And that gives you access to guard because like you can weapon swap, do your shield slam skill, and then you gain guard, and then you swap back to your two-hander, and you've still got that guard, right? So that's a thing that has come out that's not kind of like directly obvious here. So hopefully there's a bit more layered defenses going on there. But we'll wrap up defenses there for the moment, and we've touched on weapon swap a bit. Weapon swap's instant. You can now use the same weapon in both weapons as well. That was announced yesterday. Very good news, because specifically, Jonathan was telling me that he was rather sad that that wasn't going to be able to make it in, so they managed to last minute get that one in. So that means that you can now have like a shield applies to both weapon sets, or just your crossbow works in both weapon sets, and you can take advantage of the different skill trees, different skills built in different ways, or whatever you want to do with those, without needing to like buy two sets of weapons. So that I feel like is a huge change. So I'm curious about your guys' thoughts on the weapon swap changes. I'm also curious, like, how much have you used weapon swap? How fundamental do you think it is to building characters in Path of Exile 2? Is it mandatory, and is that a good thing? Those are my prompts for you, my fine friends.
So my first thoughts on weapon swap previously before these changes, the weapon swap speed always felt like it was way too much of an opportunity cost to reliably do an interaction where I'm doing this skill that has this thing and then this skill. So for me, it came down to the limitation. Okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm utilizing some snapshotted thing that's going to last a while. And that was like curses, that's like sigil. So you have a lot of these situations where you'll see a lot of builds do this sort of thing where they snapshot some long duration thing. With the instant weapon swap and you can utilize your good item, like let's say you bought an expensive weapon, now that you can actually use it in both sets, and you could maybe say I have a setup that has my wand and focus versus a setup that maybe has a wand and a shield. A lot of times I was giving variations on builds where I'd say, okay, if you want to be defensive, you can have a shield setup, or you can have a wand or focus setup. It opens that up a little bit more, and I think I'm definitely going to be looking for opportunities to maybe say, can I play two elements because I don't lose my weapon necessarily, and also I don't lose the time it takes to swap. That opportunity cost was super massive in my mind, and eliminating that makes it feel like it's a viable option to choose a thing where I swap my gear set to cast this different ability.
Did you use it, Nugi? Will this get you using it more?
Did I use it? Yes.
Yeah.
Was I annoyed by it every time? Yes, because the weapon swap speed was way too long.
Yeah.
I always thought, like, why is this even here? Like, it takes something that's really that I really want to do, and makes me really want to not do it. It's the weapon swap speed. It's just like and for the builds when you start like, okay, so there's this build I could set up where I'm using like two different skills, bow and crossbow and stuff, and it's like, and now I have to take weapon swap nodes as well. It's just like, it just felt so bad, like when you were like finally committing to it. So I'm really happy with what they're doing here. This was like it was on my like big list of things that I really wanted to see. So I'm really happy that they're doing this, because like it just needs to be like fluid and actually accessible, because it should be part of the core of PoE2 with everything they've done. Like, you've like split passive trees, we can have two weapons, like there's no, like, everything just leads to we should be using multiple weapons, and now we can. So it's good.
I think on paper, to me, they have like weapon swap having no opportunity cost, it being like as buffed as it is now, is lunacy, but it needed to be buffed to that extent because I think A, it's very fundamental, and B, just it's so hard to get people to actually use it, regardless of how good it is. So they need to remove as many barriers as possible to get people using it. And like a big complaint people have in Path of Exile 2 is that like the skills are too bound to the weapons. Like, there's something I hear very often. I don't know if I necessarily agree, but the idea is like this skill only works on spears and this skill only works on hammers, and there's not a lot of like cross between them necessarily. But weapon swapping is that bridge. Weapon swapping is how you make a build that crosses between weapons, you know? And having that be seamless, I think, makes that much more of a reality. And I do think that it is intended to be mandatory. I pretty much asked Jonathan that, and he seemed to be saying basically that yes, that is it is considered to be like a fundamental part of builds. I think like you'll be able to get away with not doing it depending on what your expectations are for gameplay, but it doesn't really make sense now to not incorporate it. I do wonder though that if there is a bit of a fundamental issue with getting people to use it, even if it's insanely good and insanely easy to use and with no drawbacks, just because like it's confusing. Like binding the skills to the weapons and the
right.
tree, especially mainly the tree, is like that to me is like, I don't know, trying to teach people craft things. Like some people will never get it. Like some people will never craft in Path of Exile. I think some people will never weapon swap in Path of Exile, despite it being like such a big part of like making characters and so good. And yeah, I don't know, like what the solution is there, or if it's just a fundamentally flawed kind of approach to this. I like
I don't
it,
know if
but
that's something that necessarily needs a solution, because I think people
yeah,
that don't do crafting don't do it because they aren't interested in it. They don't care about it, and it doesn't
maybe that's
matter,
fine.
because if they're enjoying the way they're playing, that they don't need to be you have to weapon swap. Like they can make the choice not to do it, and I think that's
I think it's
does that have to be a problem necessarily?
I think as long as with the example of like crafting, it's pretty fine because the people who won't craft, it does feel very optional. I don't know if this is quite as optional, but I hope that the people who don't ever engage with weapon swaps because it's too much for them to like take on mentally, then I hope that they are the same people whose expectations for what they do in the game is much lower, so it's not a problem. Because I think that's okay. Like if their expectation is only that they just go and do a tier 15 map and they don't really need to like optimize beyond that point, then it's fine. I think that'll work. But if you've got like players who are more engaged in the game, but it's still too annoying or confusing for them, like much more engaged players, like before it was the case that even though I knew it was really good and I liked it, I still wasn't like, I was still kind of resistant to setting up my weapon swap setup all the time. So I worry that like maybe there's a bit of an intersection there where it's like, I don't know, more barriers need to be removed or it need to be made a little bit easier to engage with or something.
You just need to get out of your comfort zone, Ziggy. But I think I think there's a bit of that. I think there's a lot of like, what can they actually do? Like, how
That seems like
easy
it'd be
can
really hard to make it more
it's like
approachable. Yeah.
I don't know. It's like there's a
That's
level
what I
to it
wonder
where
if it's
it's like
yeah,
you're just gonna
fundamentally
like it's
like a problem.
I don't know if it's a fundamental problem. It's just a more advanced part of the game, and that's okay. Like I'm sure you're gonna learn it
This
eventually. Like you're gonna like use
this
it now, right?
Oh man, yeah, I used weapon swap before. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
meant
okay.
just more
Then
that
there it
like I was
is.
kind of resistant to like setting it up initially, just because like it felt effortful to like do that initial setup.
Yes, I had the same feeling.
Um,
I kind of
hmm,
ignored it on some of my characters because like I can't be asked.
yeah,
But
and like I
now
know
I'm
objectively this is
like
really good, and after setting it up, I was like,
after
yes,
some
it's awesome.
characters, like now I'm like, okay, it's like it's not that big of a deal. I see the power and like it's like if you want to be lazy, you can be lazy, and as long as the game allows you to be lazy and still get away with it, it's fine.
Yeah. All right.
I definitely have the
S-
approach of like I don't touch weapon swaps until I'm like my character's level 90. I'll go ahead and set it up now, but
Yeah.
I'll take the power loss in the progression because I just don't want to be, oh, I got this level, now I need to go change this thing, and I like to just do it once and then hey, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think maybe that it was kind of a thing that like I would do at a certain point when I felt like I wanted to get that extra optimization. But now I'm hoping that, and I did use it in the campaign while playing my warrior. I felt like I was encouraged to use it and split the trees earlier. And I think if you like have that in mind as you're progressing, that can be like a very fun and effective thing to do. It's nice when it's kind of obvious. So I was using a two-hander and then one-hander and shield. So it's
Right.
pretty easy. I just pick up the shield nodes on one tree and like the two-hander nodes on the other tree. Easy division. I didn't really have to think about that very much. That worked pretty well. So I don't know. Maybe it's fine. Maybe like enough people will feel comfortable using it who kind of need to be using it, I guess.
I think
Did you guys have any thoughts on how you want to use weapon swap, the changes or anything? You think this is like good that they've done this?
it's great they've done. Because like I just didn't find it fun to have that. Like okay, I'll say this.
Yeah.
The one thing I think kind of sours the experience in PoE a lot is these forced pauses in doing things. So the weapon swap was like a force, like this. It almost felt like a stutter. The same thing with like throwing weapon, like a lot of the mace skill. Like there's a lot of skills where it's like there's just a bit too much added delay, and you have to go for animation. Yep. It's why like okay, it's why now you have to start doing what do you call it? Animation canceling. And I'm hearing like I heard someone saying, I think performers that said they brought it up and like apparently GGG likes it. And I'm like, that's not great because people do animation canceling because they're frustrated with like, you know, like being stuck. Yeah. It's like, oh, we would like this as a skill expression. But I'm feeling like, why not? The weapon swapping is a good example because it's like, just remove, like, why do we need that level of friction on like these things? If things need to take longer and you need to rotate through things, fine, but the whole like, do we need it so many places? I don't know.
It's like Sunder and Rolling Slam and stuff. They're kind of like,
I mean,
slightly too long tension.
I think you want animation canceling in general, though, right? Like I run into situations where I start an essence train. I'm like, oh wait, this is a dumb time to use this. I need to get out. Yeah. I'm about to get clobbered,
that's good.
Right?
That is, yes,
like,
that
has
is
utility
good.
Value.
Yes. What I'm saying is canceling for speed, where it becomes part of a rotation. It's not. It's not a reaction, but it's a rotation to like get out of all the animations and stuff.
I saw a clip. I hope they fix this where like it's a resonating strike where you slap your shield. If you just click and hold the button, you go doosh doosh doosh. Apparently, there's an animation cancel where you can just make it twice as fast. That is an example of bad animation canceling that you do not want to have in game, where you like going to do it faster. It was a similar sort of thing with like crossbows before, where you could shoot and reload much faster with like a lot less down. It's like slow down on your movement, like basically no slow down on movement. If you like tapped the skills, you go tap 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 instead of just like holding it down. So, like stuff like that. You don't want kind of players injuring themselves in order to optimize these things like that. Anywho, we did have a topic in here for endgame. I don't really know how much we want to discuss endgame. They have straight up said that like, look, this isn't the endgame patch. They have a lot they want to do. They seem to be basically acknowledging that they really still want to change towers a lot. So I feel like it's not too much worth having too much of a conversation on that. What they have done this patch though is more than I expected, given that it's not supposed to be an endgame update. There's 25 new maps and bosses out of the new content. That's a lot of extra variety. There's new unique maps with like access requirements, fragments to gain access to boss fights now, rather than like full keys to kind of like break that down more granularly, and changes to the Atlas passive trees to tie them less to like the bosses and the boss difficulty progression and more to the actual content in maps. Did you guys have any like major things you wanted to touch on with like endgame, or pieces that you wanted to say, you really want this to change or whatnot?
I feel like a lot of me right now, I'm thinking they did a pretty sizable patch. There might be things where I could say, hey, I'm critical of this, but it's like they already had said, hey, towers is on our list. This wasn't an endgame patch. There's other stuff we're going to do. And I think it's like talking at the wind, because a lot, like they got stuff on their plate that they're planning to do. And what they did for this patch, I think, was fairly sizable. And I'm, as a Pee-wee player, I'm a lot more excited about this patch than I thought I was going to be once I saw the reveal and stuff. But so I don't know.
What are your thoughts overall, Noogie?
I mean, I think what they're doing is fine. I think what I like what they're doing with like unique bosses and like valuing what kind of content they need to be exist in to be epic. I think that's good. Keep like, you know, like a focus on fantasy. I think is really important. The main thing I really don't like about like the towers, obviously, I mean it's not the most fun thing to do. But there's one thing more that I haven't heard them talk much about. It's like the infinity of it. I think that you get lost in your own atlas all the time. And I mean, okay, so you start putting all like the pins down, then you have 20 pins. you run out of
It's a
pins.
nice improvement.
It's like, no, but even then, you run out of pins eventually. There's too many, like, it just grows too
Yeah.
large. You lose, like, where you are, and it's like, I don't know. It's, I think, as much as I like the delvification of this, yeah, the infinity of it, I'm not sure if I'm, like,
Yeah,
really, because once I really start playing, I'm gonna, like, I haven't even really, like, min-maxed into, like, an Atlas yet. Like, I haven't gotten to that stage where I'm, like, really just grinding. If I ever get there, I'm like, I'm dreading the day that I get there. Like, where I'm, like, really feeling I'm going far.
it's interesting. I
Like
hadn't really
the
thought
button and
about
you're
this.
just the load time freezing, trying to load in the
Yeah.
Atlas to go around. Yeah.
It's not even really like the same as Delve, because in Delve the only place that matters is right where you are, basically. Like
Keep
you
going
want, like
down.
Yeah.
yeah, like maybe there was like one city you like want to come back to or something, but you don't,
The
like
highlight
the rest of it
system
doesn't
is
matter.
actually nice because it, like, I guess there's a similar one. I don't think the highlight system works very. Is there a highlight system in 2, right? Is there even one?
Sure.
What do you mean highlight system? Like searching maps or something? Map search?
You just click on the like you write it while you're looking at the atlas. You write what you're looking for, and it'll highlight all the nodes that have that available. You can do that in Delve.
You can highlight like your pins and things. I don't know if you can search like the stuff, but more search and stuff like that is needed for it overall, I'd say.
And I think we need to zoom out. If they want this thing to be big, they need to zoom out. Like, one thing I need to see, or I would love to see, even if it's not just a straight zoom out, I think, like, what are some other games that do that? Settlers and stuff, or not, Civilization, I assume. So you see all the nodes connecting, and then you zoom, and then it becomes more like areas, right? So as you zoom, yeah, so you can be like, I need to, like, because I want to, like, chase biomes, for instance. That would be nice. Or like,
I do want them to matter more.
yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, there is something that's not quite working about this. Like, I love the idea of the exploration atlas, but you've touched on an interesting point now. Maybe like help me pull my finger on what the issue is, but like the exploration part of it is getting better because they're adding more things to find.
Yes.
But there's not that natural tapering off where, like in Delve, you know, you're not going to go do the lower level stuff because it's not relevant to you anymore. It doesn't have that. Everything is the same level. It's just whatever level of the map you put in, right? It does seem like there needs to be something that's like pulling you away so that, you know, the new place you've explored to matters, rather than it just being kind of like just procedurally generated sameness, right? Like, I guess.
Yeah. That's like I think that's very, yes, that's a good way of pointing it. That's like what I'm like, that's the main thing for me.
It kind of reminds me of like, so most action RPGs that have procedurally generated maps, like zones, like the actual, like the content you run around in, is they're quite bad because it's just randomly thrown together tiles that connect together.
Yeah.
Whereas, and the difference between that and what GGG's put a lot of effort into doing, which is where like there's a lot more kind of like intent towards the zone layouts. There's procedural generation going on, but it's like guided procedural generation. It kind of reminds me of that there's no guidance here. It is just procedurally generated things plugging into each other with no real like rhyme or reason. Like, there's no reason to follow a coastline or something like outside of like a unique map or something. Maybe
I would like theme zones, but they actually go in it. Like, I don't know if that. I don't know what you guys think about that. I would like them to do actual theme zones, and they have a little bit more of a hand, like like it doesn't. It can still be somewhat procedurally generated, but like it generates things that they've handcrafted. Because if everything is procedurally generated, it gets very samey and sloggy. But if they actually allow you to come through zones that are handcrafted, where there's like a story or something, I mean, I would love to find, you know, story elements or something as I'm going through. I'm like, okay, this is an option. I know it's hard because, you know, you have all the point of the atlas for a lot of people is overlap towers and juice. So like these things might not matter as much, but I mean, something.
It's how we get away from that, like exploration that pulls you away from like sitting in one tower area is part of how we get away from that. Like, it's part of that equation, I think. I wonder if they have a bigger vision for this, what they want to do with it, or if it's just going to be iterative until we arrive at something fun. Maybe it took us a while to get to the current atlas in PoE 1, and
yes,
we'll see what they can do with this by launch. But either way, like I feel like this is just a huge expansion, and the fact that it did have like actually a pretty sizable chunk of extra content for endgame is a pleasant surprise. So I don't know if you guys have anything on endgame you want to add outside of that then, since it does seem that it's kind of like it's a topic for next league, maybe.
Yeah.
More
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Did you just want to touch on crafting recently? We did mention there's the new tiered. There's quite a lot of changes on crafting, honestly. There's the new tiered currencies, which basically is the idea that currencies will have versions that allow you to not land lower modifiers. So a certain level of Chaos Orb might only be able to add level 50 plus modifiers. There's also the new Abyss crafting, which is a bit like Unveiling. Essence changes, so essences acting as regals or chaos orbs with a bit more kind of like power, and those seem a bit stronger overall. There's the sanctification omen, Hinakora's locks, the new special bases. There's actually a lot going on here. You guys feeling about kind of state of crafting looking going into this?
State of crafting. I've been usually pretty vocal about not being happy with the crafting system.
Mm-hmm.
But with changes like these, I don't think it's necessarily what I'm hoping for in terms of like, I hope they eventually come to the conclusion that they are saying, hey, you can have scours. You can have the ability to craft a good base until you're done. But I'm still gonna be happy about this because what they've done with these perfect transmutes, perfect augments, they've essentially cut down the bases it takes you to get a good item from, I think, almost 80 to 90% with these targeted. You're gonna get a T1 affix versus not, because the perfect transmute, perfect augment, I think the item levels when I was looking up on various affixes you can hit are literally limiting you to only T1 affixes in a lot of those cases, which if you start out with a T1 affix, all of a sudden your chance to make a good item is exponentially higher because you didn't hit tier 7 through 3 that wouldn't have ever had a chance to be an item you even want to craft further on past that. So I'm really happy they're adding in, something that reduces the insane amount of bases required to hit a good item. I'm hoping they keep adding to it and chipping away at it, but I'm just happy overall that it's a huge reduction in the amount of bases required to actually hit something decent.
Any thoughts from you, Nugi?
I'm just excited. I like what they did with essences. That was really good. Gonna make those way more useful.
I had a moment during the campaign where I felt like deterministic crafting towards my goal was much more real. So I got an essence. It was a physical essence. Around the time I just picked up and crafted a mace with like 2 good affixes, slammed the affix on it, and then the very next thing I did was picked up the quest where you unlock the workbench and you get the rune that you can customize what it is you can choose. So I chose the physical rune. I did all those 3 things together. Like I crafted that from like a white item or a blue item that dropped into like an insane rare item with a rune and everything like that. I was like, this all kind of came together, and I was like, this is happening a bit more. Like this was actually like a little. I got to choose what I was doing. Yeah, like there was a moment there. I was like, huh, that was a thing just occurred. So I was optimistic about how improved the campaign experience is feeling for crafting. I think maybe there's still a bit of an issue of later on not really having access to the runes you need. So maybe more will need to be done there, because there is that like one where you get to pick from the quest, but I don't know if like some other way of like controlling rune RNG might be helpful. But I was liking the look of the essences. I'd say I don't like the tiered currency though. I like any crafting buffs, let's get real. So I love this. I'd love this less than other things though, because having like 3 transmutes that look the same, that are different tiers of transmutes, feels weird, and I don't know. I don't know if I have a really good reason for this. Messy, like the currency tab gets bigger. They should at least have different art.
I think I like it over.
I assume that's probably the goal.
I think I like it. It reduces the amount of things dropping later on. I think that's very good.
That's part of the goal.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
very
specifically
good.
mentioned. Yeah.
It ties well
dropping
into
10 augments, you drop 1 greater.
I mean, it ties well, like as you have tiered items dropping, you also get tiered. It follows the natural progression, so I think it makes sense that way. Like it'll become very obvious when Like it'll. I think it just makes sense. I think it'll feel like it makes sense as you start getting them. And then what I also like is how it ties with ritual omens. Omens are way stronger now.
Yeah, it looks like some big omen improvements.
Yes, like double exalt. Hello. Think about that one, right? And all of a
Double
sudden,
perfect.
it's not just an exalt anymore. It's better. And then you can start thinking, oh, do I only use perfect? No, I get enough omens so I can go down. And that's a good way of like, that'll be a good decision to make, or like a much nicer one, other than, oh, I just found an exalt in the vendor. I hate this. Right? So that I'm really happy about. Do you know if Sanctified Omen makes it unmirrorable?
They were not clear on that, but it has the same description as
I'm pretty sure that's the case. Yes,
I
I,
hope
do
so.
think that they are effectively locked in the same way as like vialing as well, so
Yeah,
you
that's
can't
good.
vial them either. If you sanctify, it's kind of like sanctify or vial is your decision, and I'm pretty sure you can't mirror it at that point.
Good.
But yeah,
because I've
seems to be
always,
kind of the
as much
idea.
as I appreciate the mirror and the history about it, it's like I want, even though I don't do that high-end crafting, I get really sad when I see people like it's just the same item again and again and again. I want to see unique items.
You want the one of the kinds, yeah.
Yes, the
truly
one of a
legendary
kinds are
items.
way more fun, and people actually attempting to go for one of a kinds rather than it's just a service is much more fun. Like I enjoy it as an observer into the softcore trade much more. So
I think
There's
the
a-
mirror service has a incentive tied to a large amount of what goes on.
Oh,
And
really?
Some people it is their real life business. Yes.
it very much feels that way.
Yes, the seedy underbelly. there's
Yeah.
a truth there. I do like there's things I like about the tiered currency, like the idea that you will feel fine with using exalts that drop during the campaign because there are better exalts at endgame. That is great. Like it achieves that, which I've always identified as like a problem, right? That FOMO of like never use anything, keep all your elixirs until after you defeat Sephiroth. Like it tackles that, so I just so it's maybe a bit washy that I don't like it anyway. Maybe it's just the presentation and method by which they've done that. What was the other? No, I lost the other part of that. But oh yeah,
I think overall I could appreciate what you're saying with it. It is kind of copy reuse, doesn't
A bit
feel
ugly.
great.
it's very
But the
gamey.
thing is, for me, the way
Yeah.
I'm looking at it is I'm like starving over here and I just want to just a little, just give me something more. Just help me, please. There's so much not there. I need some more support for this. I want to be able to craft something.
Like I said, I love any crafting buffs for sure.
Yeah.
But it does like it highlights something that I kind of wanted them to do anyway, which was like taper off the lower end of modifiers more. Like I know they've done some of that.
Yeah.
They did some of that for drops, right? But for crafting as well, like why doesn't a high, instead of like making this tiered currency, why doesn't like an item level 80 base only like not be able to roll item level 1 affixes? Like why not just taper those off anyway as part of the like value of finding that base? Or even if you want tight to these like crazy new bases where it's like they're juiced up, they don't roll shitty affixes. That would make crafting them like much more exciting, wouldn't it?
Well, I have the alternative to be like you either get one of those, you get all the normal stuff that you could like. So the exception ones have the rules we have now, or you go the other way, where it's non-exceptional, but then you get the benefit of the color lower ends. So you don't get as good of an item, but if you get a high level item of the non-exceptional, it generates better overall.
I like there's a few things that they could potentially explore here, but I definitely like
Yeah.
this idea of tapering off those lower ends.
Yeah.
It is appealing. You pitch it, GG? I will. I will. All right. If you guys have any other thoughts on crafting, there's a lot to unpack there, but I feel like maybe that's a next episode deal. Once we've had a bit more chance to mess around with it.
Yeah, I think so.
See how crafting actually feels in hindsight, but it looks like a great suite of buffs to crafting, which I'm here for. I have a question. Have you guys decided what build you want to play?
Yes.
What are you going to play, Lance?
Blood Mage, I have no idea what skill. So kind of decided. I guess maybe
You haven't decided nothing.
I mean, until we actually get to play with infusions, it really is just up in the air depending on how that stuff feels.
Stuff looks so good.
I'm feeling like I don't have enough information.
Yeah, that's fair. So circle back to our earlier discussion.
I'm gonna cast a spell.
Nice.
What about you, Nugi?
Got an armor stack.
Yeah, he's gonna armor stack.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm playing tactician. I'm gonna try an armor stack and play around banners. It's really so silly. We just did a new league in PoE 1. Well, not just, but the previous one. I played a bannerman, and now I'm playing a bannerman in PoE 2. I didn't even think that I actually I went straight to the same build.
People are gonna ask me, Lance, is there a banner build creator you know about? I'm gonna say, Noogie, he's your guy. He's the banner guy.
Who's asking that? No one's asking that.
Nobody's gonna ask it,
I'll tell you this,
ask that.
I will approach armor with caution. I don't think they're far away from making it actually good. Like if they bring it all depends on whether or not they bring down ES. Because like that basically makes everything not worth it. But once that eventually comes down, I think we're getting pretty close. Just a few tweaks and it's actually there.
I don't think you even need to warn people. I think you're fine. At the lower end of things, even if armor is not that good at lower investment, the other stuff is good. Like I feel like you're covered enough to do all the content. And then at the higher level of investment, not being as good as other options. I don't think you need to like warn people off it. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be like a
armor specifically. No, I mean the side of the bottom to left is perfectly fine for playing. You'll do all content. It'll be fine. Block and everything will be fine. But specifically trying to make an armor stacker, if you're trying to
that's fair.
Yeah, I would say just approach it with caution.
The hyperfixation.
Yeah. We don't know the passive in the tree yet. We don't know to which extent they're allowing us to really invest into this. They have made some changes with some of the soul cores where they buffed them already. So I mean, I think they know they've potentially lowballed some of these things a little bit. I really hope they realize that the item pressure is way too high. That's like the affix pressure. I think that's like the one thing they need to like actually think.
Yeah, I think like the problem before was that like a lot of like newer players or returning players or whatever would like jump on a warrior and expect to be tanky in the campaign and weren't, and they were really struggling. I don't think that's a problem anymore. Like I think between block and guard and the changes to like weapon swapping and support gems and stuff like that, there's just enough going on there that like, oh man, I just felt like I was like the warrior power fantasy felt real. So I think that's not as much of a problem at all now. We did have a topic here that we'll try and we're getting past the 2-hour mark, so we'll go a little speedier on things. But yeah, did you want to just give us a quick like, what is your best and worst ascendancy or build change from the patch notes? Go, Lance.
All right, best ascendancy change. I'm gonna say for me, it's just an opinion thing. Blood Mage. Its start always felt terrible. Taking away you click your first node and it feels bad. I think that's the best change for an ascendancy. There's a lot of, I think, decent changes, but that's the ascendancy I'm playing. It got me most excited. Worst ascendancy change for me is I'm going to go with Chonk. And I'm going to say that because it was a sizable rework. And my takeaway from the rework to me felt like it went from an ascendancy I never think you should click to an ascendancy I never think you should click. And I have no faith in the volatility mechanic. So for me, that's my worst. I would want to see Chonk become something where I like, oh, that I could see myself doing something with this, but I can't currently with the change they did to it. But I could be cooked. Maybe it's gonna be good.
All right, I like it. It's registered now. We can review that in a week's time or a bit over a week's time. Nugi, what about yourself, mate? What is your best and or worst build changes or ascendancy changes?
Biggie? Can hear you.
Yeah. You can't hear me?
I can now.
Oh, okay. Nugi, what are your best or worst ascendancy or build changes?
Okay, I'll start with worst. Smith Katava. I don't know what they're thinking. That is what the hell? How to murder a good-looking guy? I mean, what? I don't know. They remove like 10 max res. Just like Okay. So now you can't do that anymore. Then they shifted, and what did they change it with? Like the armor as applied to Ellie on Smith and Katava. That can't armor stack. That's crazy, right? So it's like they need to wear a white armor to use apply Ellie or armor to Ellie. What they need to do, at least if anything like that, is they need to give them a 2 passive point or something that gives Smith and Katava like crafted hands and helmet. So that gives you like 100% more armor from your helmet and hands or something. Because then you can actually armor stack, but you do it through the other items, and you're the smith, and it would make sense. And then you have this armor, and it's fine. But something like that needs to happen. So I think that was terrible. I think they balanced it around the fact that ES is way overpowered. Because every smith and Katava was strength stacking ES with 90 res and 5% life regen that applies to ES. So they nerfed the regen because ES exists. I think that's terrible. That's what I think happened, and I think that's terrible. The best, I don't know, Warbringer, the 2-pointer now is I love that. But Warbringer has a lot of cool stuff going. I'm not playing Warbringer now, but I would like to play it. So now you get the ignore cooldown on the 2-pointer, and then you get, because it felt really weird before because you have so little choice after you spent those 4. But when some of those are only 2, I feel like the whole that whole thing just opened up. And also don't click the 75% block node on Warbringer, guys. Don't just click active block and just leave it at that. I'm just telling you, the math is bad. You're gonna end up spending like 10 extra nodes to get the passive block up, and the average mitigation does not change. You just wasted 10 points for nothing. It's very, very rare that it's worth it to go for those nodes. So that'll, yeah. No, even with Swalen, do not take it with Swalen. That's not good either. You can take the first 2 nodes, that's fine, but not the last.
Fallen Hate, I can get on board with that. Garbage. That's PoE 1 related. I actually don't know what PoE 2 Svalin is actually good or not. I have no idea.
That was good. It is good.
My best and worst are actually one and the same. Witch Hunter. I have a complicated relationship with you, as do any Witch Hunter players, I feel. So Witch Hunter is like, I really like it, and I think it actually has like a lot of flavor. It always feels like you're making the wrong choice in it. And I don't think the addition of Deflect helps the situation. I feel like now I'm going to, even if it's still worth taking Sorcery Ward, I think that Deflect just makes it feel like it made a mistake even more, because if that's like eating into your Deflect rating, is Deflect calculated? I hope Deflect is calculated pre-Sorcery Ward conversion. That might actually be okay. We'll see.
Probably not. You're probably getting screwed, Ziggy.
I like probably. It's the Witch Hunter way. I like Sorcery Ward. It's like bad on paper, but it actually feels good, but it still feels like a mistake at the same time. It's so complicated. Oh god, I really don't understand. But then so like, okay, it's fine. I just won't play Witch Hunter. They're not really doing anything positive for it. They're adding some crit thing, whatever. I just won't play it. Easy choice. Then what do? Yesterday they announced the passive node. 100 passive points. You get 100 weapon swap passive points. I'm pretty sure that adds to the base 24. Yeah. 124. You can split your entire tree down the middle. Is this a good thing? I mean, that's wicked. That's awesome. That's such a good example of just like no one is ever using this. So let's just buff it like crazy. What was it before? 20. Let's just buff it to 100. So unhinged. I love it. But does this help me? No, because I'm having enough trouble picking one build, let alone 2 builds. You have to plan 2 builds with that node. And
2 builds that don't grab jewel sockets.
Yes, are they fixing the keystone and jewel socket issue? So you have to plan a basic, a regular tree that goes through the jewels and keystones that you want, and then you branch off from that. Like, what a nightmare! I hope they change that. Honestly, I feel like surely
it definitely significantly limits your ability to be like flexible on it.
Yeah,
it ties you to certain spots on the tree.
Best and worst, Witch Hunter. I love it. I hate it. I want to play it. Maybe. Why? What does that say about me? I don't know.
All right, let's move
into red flags, but that's not stopping me.
Red flags. Witch Hunter, the red flag class. Yes, it's the first question to ask on a date. Are you a Witch Hunter player by chance? Okay. No second date for you. predictions. That's our final topic. Nuki really likes the idea of us doing predictions and tracking our score in the future. We've done a few predictions throughout the show. We have a prediction section at the end as well for some final predictions to end on. The first one is a spicy. What do you think the player count's going to be with the free weekend? Are we cracking launch? Are we beating last league? Like, okay, so the Steam numbers were 578k at launch. And for last league, it was 246,000 on Steam. Do we based on Steam numbers, or do we go for total numbers, which we don't get to see as easily?
I think Steam. Just
Steam's probably easier.
yeah.
Okay, so what is your prediction for this league?
Wait,
Sorry, what was the Steam number reference?
We have to write it
We're
down.
gonna write it down, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it was. Oh yeah, we were going to write it down at the same time so we don't do the prices right on each other. That's true. I forgot about that.
Wait, so what was the Steam number? The Steam number last time?
The Steam numbers were 578,000, and then 500 for launch, and then 246,000 for last league. I gotta find some paper. Oh, we're gonna do that. You're gonna hold up the same thing. Here we go.
I have the perfect
Oof.
answer. I've won this
I have
already.
I have an answer.
I have the perfect answer.
Super
There's
confident.
only one answer.
Okay. All right. You ready?
Yep.
Holding up. Mine is. Oh, it's backwards, is it? Well, we're pretty close, aren't we?
This is never gonna work.
420. I'm 450. I don't know why mine's backwards.
Why?
450k.
For me, looking at your screen, it doesn't look backwards, but for me, it looks backwards.
We are going to have a Price is Right issue then, because if it's like 300k or whatever, then Noogie wins for being lowest.
Yep. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey. Well
Mine
calculated.
was like upside down and back to front. Yeah, so that's interesting. So we seem to all be kind of pitching like that a bit under launch.
Yes.
Despite it being free to play, because the free to play thing is obviously huge, but at the same time, like I don't know. I think like as much as it's not a big deal to me, because this is like one of the biggest like patches they've done. I feel the fact that it doesn't have like a new class, maybe I feel like
That's
brings
big.
it down. I feel like it would be over 500k if they had a new class, because that just there's like a good 20% of people that is all they look at is like some new class.
Something
They
new,
want to
yep.
turn into a bear or whatever. Yeah,
I'm
so I think
thinking
free-to-play we're gonna
it doesn't have
enjoy.
launch hype, but it gets the free player boost. I feel like that's kind of net a little bit lower. That's my hunch, at least, but I don't know.
Yeah, the logic checks out. I feel we'll see if we're all way off base on that. It could be way less, could be way more. I honestly don't know. But you're probably
A lot of
similar,
chat
though.
saying we don't have the China numbers, which I don't even know if that is that.
Oh, really?
Is that the case? In which case, we're gonna all be like.
We'll just look at the Steam graph next week, next podcast. I think we'll do that. All right, next prediction, another spicy one. Is Warrior buffed or nerfed? And next time you will have to like make your case as well as to why you feel like yes, you were right, it was buffed or nerfed. And a side bet for this one, is Warrior good? So, all right, Lance, you first. Is Warrior buffed or nerfed? And,
I'm gonna say
and when we
nerfed.
say Warrior, we mean like, you know, a proper Warrior mace. We're not your ES bullshit.
No, what do you mean by ES? Hey, that's a. Hey, if we count the ES stuff, I could say buffed. You know, I could say caught buffed. But yeah, I'm gonna go with nerfed on this one.
He's saying nerfed, and so your side bet wouldn't be for good then. So no side bet for you.
No, I do not. I am not a believer.
Buffed.
Buffed or nerfed?
Buffed.
But you say buffed? All right,
I'm
side
saying
bet
buffed.
is Warrior good.
Yes.
Oh, he's going for the double.
Full belief.
Ooh. I look forward to a 0 for 2 next league. So you're gonna have to justify next podcast why you think in fact Warrior was good. You realize that's what you're committing to here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, well, I must be a glutton for punishment because I'm voting the same way. I say Warrior's buffed. The benefit of hand-on experience here, and I think I can make a case for like some sort of like generalist kind of.
Hey, you're only in the campaign, Ziggy.
Yeah,
you're only in the campaign. Okay, you wait till you get to maps.
I only played Act 3, but based
the
on
numbers
that
get a little
alone,
bit
I'm
higher.
like, Warrior's buffed and Warrior's good. I think the perspective on Warrior will shift. No, being real though, there is like a there is always the extent that there's always going to be a good number of people that will never like the slow mace slam warrior melee thing. So maybe I should side bet not good. Okay, I'm going to say buffed, but side bet no one. It'll never have the prevailing opinion of being good. That's my side bet. There'll always be contention.
Safe.
Yes. Yeah. So buffed, but never good because can't ever be good. That's my side bet.
Attack slow.
All right. Next prediction: will trade catastrophically fail in some way? Bonus side bet if you want. In what manner specifically? Lance, will trade catastrophically fail?
I'm gonna say no. Perfect. Goes off without a hitch. Best change ever. Greatest.
So
thank you. Perfection. Yep.
Okay. All right. Nugi.
Will it fail? No.
Okay. Well, it's like, yeah, fail in some way. It doesn't have to be a complete failure.
In some way.
Like,
will it fail?
yes, like in some major way. Yes. Will there be some? Like I'm talking like at least
there's gonna be an exploit.
The same Reddit
there's gonna be an
threads.
exploit. Someone's gonna find a way to like crash instances or do something in that manner. It'll be some RMT group exploiting, and it'll crash it in some way. And yeah, and there'll be some kind of like
Okay.
GGG will need to go to the office in the weekend.
All right. My bet is if we're saying that there's going to be like 3 Reddit threads on the front page at the same time, all about trade, like complaining about something, I bet yes. I think it's inevitable. Even though when I saw this, when I was shown this trade, I'm like, this is rock solid. Like this is about as good as they could do. Like I can't really see how they could make this more like inured against failure. So it's going to be fine on the whole. But I do think, and this is my side bet, the manner in which the biggest problem will occur is people in people's hideouts. It's my vote. People are going to be in people's hideouts and they're going to be annoying in some manner. They're going to be spamming skills or crashing, or people's hideouts will be crashing people. Like, I think there will be problems around that. I think that'll be the biggest thing. Probably be a few small things, but
this is a win, Siggy. This is not a fail. It's a win. There are people in your hideout, Siggy. We're socializing again.
Partying. They brought their goblin pet. It's great.
Like someone made me do a trade on 2B's butt and their goblins were surrounding me, well, bongoing away. Okay. We'll skip the deflection one, I think, because of the discussion around that. Here's all right. Our final one. This is one for you, Lance, in particular. Can a life armor, in brackets, non-ES build, tank an Uber Arbiter corridor blast?
No.
He says no.
No.
All right. No. No, never ever. Chat's saying no too. What about you, Nugi?
Yes.
Yes, awesome.
It can be
Excellent.
done.
I love it.
It can be done.
We'll see. We'll wait to see that footage.
All right. If I can cheat on this prediction, I'm going to say. So is it blockable? I'm going to say on a block.
No, not blockable. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Not a cheese. You have to actually tank the damage.
Okay. All right.
The upside here, as we talked about earlier, is you can specialize just pure for fire. So like you stack fire res, you stack armor applied to just fire, you get all the things, you strength stack as much as you can, you actually get life, you get deflection on top.
You're gonna have to convince somebody to do it, Nugi, or you're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, we'll see.
You're talking about a non-functional build right now.
I know.
I feel crazy going against Lance on this one. But I'm gonna go yes too, because I have faith in the degenerate kind of like optimizers to be able to stack like the new armor stuff with guard and do some shenanigans without ES. So we'll see if someone can pull that off. The only problem is like I don't know if they can do it in a week. I think that might be like later in the league.
Oh, that's true. But
my yes is kind of maybe like a trap.
You already had your votes. No changing now. No changing now.
No. I'm willing to eat the loss on that, but be vindicated at the end of the league.
Okay, what if it by the end of the league it happens? Can I?
You get like half a point back.
Yes, you get sympathy, but you were wrong. That's how it works.
Probably that. No point.
This is it. Oh my god, this is like an end of the league thing. God damn it.
Got him.
Yeah, I feel like we walked into a trap on this one. Actually,
He
Come to
got
think
us.
of it. I probably should have voted no on that.
I actually was setting up a trap with this. I carefully laid it, placed it,
Right, well done.
put a fine,
Very-
delicate slice of cheese,
I
just
see
like
you're
a
even
mouse. You just-
optimizing the predictions too. You're cheesing it. Well, this has been very fun. I'm glad to be back to podcasting, fellas. We shall leave it there for today, or the hefty, however long this was, long time. Thanks for the
Very
chat. We'll
concise, well timed.
yep. Not
Very
waffling, not getting sidetracked. Definitely important discussions were had. Our plan is to return a week or so into the new league. We'll
I would say probably
see what feels right. Pardon?
probably not in the first week. I would say it's probably better in the
Not in the first week.
second week.
Yeah, okay. So
Nuke's
sometime
gonna
in the
extend it
second
out
week.
like 2 months in for this prediction. He's like, pull it back a little bit more, guys.
Yeah,
Got to delay a little
we'll do the next
longer.
episode when our prediction comes true. So
Yes.
maybe never. We'll see. Yeah, maybe wait for the first like big patch or something. That could be cool. All right. So that is the plan, and then we can review our predictions and whatnot. But I hope you find folks enjoyed our actually those for today. I'm Ziggy D, joined by Nugi and Captain Lance, and thank you very much for watching, folks. Bye bye.
Bye guys.
He's,